Play dates. Did you unmute? I just unmuted. Exactly. What year are they in now? Oh, wow. Are you ready to begin, Madam Chair? I'm ready, yes, Erin. We're recording. Right. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call to order this Thursday, September 19th, 2024 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have had on our agenda one public hearing for tonight, but the applicant has requested that we open it and then immediately continue the hearing to our October 3rd, 2024 meeting. So I'm going to skip the usual reading I do of the process of public hearings and ask for a motion that we open and then continue it to our October 3rd meeting.
Can you take attendance?
Oh, thank you, Erin. That was part of my spiel.
I should read the legal notice as well, since we're going to open.
Okay, so let me back
back
up a little bit to the end of my process, which is that seated this evening are members Bob Reinhardt, John Duza, Andy Rubin, Bob O'Connor, myself, Carol Snow Chair, Mike Bugda, John Morgan, Jeff Downs, and town planner seated at the end, Aaron Manick, sorry. This meeting is being live streamed on YouTube and will be made available on the town website for viewing, and the town planner will now read the legal notice for the public hearing.
Notice is hereby given that the Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, September 19th, 2024, beginning at 7 p.m. in Meeting Room A, Town Campus, 8 Campus Drive, Madison, Connecticut, 06443. This is a hybrid meeting and attendees may also join via Zoom webinar through either the webinar link or call-in information below. The webinar ID is 915-8196-6735 and the password is 452138. Call-in number is 1-646-558-8656. The following application will be heard 24-28, 454 Horsepond Road, map 84, lot 28, zone rural residential 1, owner 454 Horsepond LLC. Applicant is Mack Building LLC. Petition for zone boundary change pursuant to section 27 to change the designation of land from the RU1 district to open space conservation district for a 4-lot subdivision. Copies of these applications are available for inspection in the land use office. Further details on how to participate in the webinar are posted on the Town of Madison website, www.MadisonTV.org. All written correspondence can be submitted to the Land Use Department via email, landuse@MadisonCT.org. Dial 203-245-5631 for assistance. Dated at Madison, Connecticut, this 27th day of August, 2024. Carol Snow, Chair. This was published once in the source on September 5th, 2024, and once on September 12th, 2024.
Thank you. So could I have a motion then to open the public hearing for 24-28, 454 Horsepond Road, and then immediately continue it to October 3rd, 2024? Second from Jeff Downs. Thank you. And then we move right up to pending applications, also 24-29, 454 Horsepond Road. This is for the subdivision application for 4 lots pursuant to section 27, Open Space Conservation District. And again, the applicant is requested to table this meeting until our October 3rd, 2024 meeting. So can I have a motion?
So.
Connor, second. John Morgan, thank you. All in favor?
Okay.
Next on our agenda is 24-26 Overshores Drive East, map 14, lot 9, zone R4. Owner is the Overshores Association Inc. and Joanna Cotoia. Applicant Race Coastal Engineering. It's a coastal site plan to replace some or all bulkhead components as needed in the beach area. So they're on Zoom. Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Azure Slicher from Race Coastal Engineering, representing the applicant, the Overshores Association, and there are 2 members of the association who are live in your room there, should you need them. So as you mentioned, this is a bulkhead replacement. So if I could share my screen just for a second, I'll give you some context.
Yes.
Right. So the common property of the association beach area is has this timber bulkhead, which essentially maintains the stream channel coming from the marsh further upland, and so maintains that opening. And it's been installed for decades under permits with DEEP. And so there's components of it. It's timber that are nearing the end of their service life, and so we've received a certificate of permission from DEEP and a general permit through Army Corps, self-verification for this kind of work, to replace the timber components on an as-needed basis over the next 5 years in phases, with the first phase being the tiebacks. In this particular photo, the tiebacks are actually buried, but due to the cyclic nature of the beach, they become exposed, as the beach erodes, and then get covered as it accretes. But when they are in an eroded state, and you can see them, they're actually corroded. The tie rods are corroded, and the timber is again nearing the end of its service life due to rot. So we are just requesting permission to replace in kind. It will be timber. Again, everything in kind to the same dimensions and location as has been existing.
I've also provided staff comments and draft conditions for your review, and today we did receive comments from Deep as a part of your referral process. And I believe all the comments, Azure, I don't know that you've seen them, but all the comments are consistent with the COP that was issued and just general stockpiling upland and staff's comments as well. So nothing new from Deep.
Thanks, Erin.
That's good.
Being unplanned.
I have just one question, Azure, for you. What's the date of the current timber structure?
The installation date?
Yeah,
There was a previous permit in, I believe, 1995 for the lead of repairs at that time. So we're well into a 30-year design life, which I think is typical for timber. So it makes sense that it's nearing the end of its life.
thanks. Any other questions or comments? Then would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
And we have staff recommendations and a draft and a microphone.
Oh, I'm sure you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay.
Erin, do you want your comments read completely?
No, it's not a public hearing. I
Right.
just gave a synopsis of the project, highlighting the coastal resources on site and the construction sequence as Azure described in the application. So there was no information you didn't already read.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. The following draft resolutions offered, Madison Planning and Zoning Commission approves application number 24-26 Overshores Drive East, map 14, lot 9, zone R4, owner of Overshores Association Inc, Joanna Cotoia. Applicant Race Coastal Engineering Incorporated, coastal site plan to replace some or all bulkhead components as needed in beach areas shown in application documents with the following condition. One, that the zoning enforcement officer provides at least 48 hours prior to commencement of each phase of this regulated activity. In the event that changes to the approved plans are required as a result of other agency permitting to support the activity, the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission reserves the right to review said changes and may require modifications. The Commission acknowledges the issuance of a certificate of permission by Deep for this work. This approval is made based upon the finding that the proposal is existing wood bulkhead, which protects the permanently owned area as well as maintains the adjacent tidal stream. The Commission further finds the proposal consistent with all applicable rules and policies in the Coastal Management Act and Section 25 Madison zoning regulations. Effective date of this approval is October 4th.
Could I have a second? Any further comments? In favor? Looks like it's unanimous.
Madam Chair, we're not picking up on captions, so everyone's going to have to enunciate a little
Okay,
louder so folks online can hear you.
thank you. Next on our agenda is 24.
Thank you, Azure.
Thank you, Azure. Next on the agenda is 24-27 Middle Beach Road, map 17, lot 70. The owner is Gail and Paul Taylor. Applicant is Thomas Stevens and Associates. It's a coastal site plan to construct a 20-foot by 24-foot detached garage on a new concrete floor poured over the existing concrete floor and foundation of the previously existing garage, which was demolished. The application includes underground electric service and stormwater infiltration.
Good evening, Chuck Mandel, agent for the applicant, Paul Taylor. This was a previously, this garage was in poor shape when the Taylors bought the property several years ago. It's just west of Fence Creek, if everyone's familiar with the property. They rebuilt the home, they want to rebuild the garage. So just got a letter from Deep today. Their comments were fairly innocuous, so some silt fence. And that. So we're just replacing the garage in kind. We are providing stormwater mitigation where which previously didn't exist. Pretty much it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So no apartment above,
No apartment, no, we did soil testing, there
even though it's a
was,
prime location.
no, it's just electric, underground electric,
Yeah.
and there was no suitable soil for septic.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any questions or comments?
So the manner in which it's less of, the manner in which it is less of a non-conforming legal structure is that you're doing underground electrical, you're increasing the height of the foundation, and then you're addressing some storm drainage issues. Those are the three main points?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, that's what you need.
Any other questions?
So Chuck, this is the property that is basically always under.
I'm sorry,
It's, I went by that property today.
Yep.
But it was a pretty high tide, but the property was flooded from that. high
yes,
tide.
that's, so we will have,
So we would,
it'll be built to coastal standards, so it will adhere to the FEMA coastal construction standards. Flood fence and such. You can have no living space, but you can use it for storage, parking cars.
We hope the road gets fixed at some point too. It gets underwater every, a lot of high tides.
Water was very high today, I
It's
couldn't
a
savor
storm
it,
week, yeah,
I couldn't believe it.
thanks.
There were a couple of recommendations, just from staff on the site plan. And I did share these with, Chuck earlier. Some of the silt fence on the east side of the property, adjacent to the tidal wetlands, appears to be, beyond the tidal wetland line, here adjacent to the creek. And so the recommendation is to revise the plan to show all activities within the upland and upland of the coastal jurisdiction line, which runs along the tidal wetland line. And then additionally, to add additional silt fencing along the rear to fully wrap the property and not leave this open for a possible encroachment or sedimentation.
Thank you.
I mean, as a condition, you could say, it needs to be field staked by the surveyor. Ensure that it's done correctly.
Okay. Unless there are further questions or comments, I think could we entertain a motion?
Madison Planning and Zoning Commission approved application 24-27 Middle Beach Road, map 17, lot 70, owner Dale and Paul Taylor, applicant Thomas K. Stevens and Associates Incorporated, coastal site plan to construct 20-foot by 24-foot detached garage and new concrete floor poured over existing concrete floor and foundation of the previously existing garage, which was demolished. Application includes underground electric service and stormwater infiltration as shown on plan. Coastal site plan prepared by Dale and Paul Taylor, assessors map 17, lot 70, Middle Beach Road, Madison, Connecticut, by Thomas A. Stevens and Associates dated July 29, 2024, sheet C1, and construction drawings, general details and typical details at Taylor Garage, 168 Middle Beach Road, by GNCV Consulting Engineers, PC, sheet S1, dated August 13, 2024, and Taylor Garage, 168 Middle Beach Road, by Point One Architects, sheets AS 1.00 through 83.01, dated August 13, 2024, with the following conditions. One, that the zoning enforcement officer be notified at least 48 hours prior to commencement of any regulated activity. Two, that all erosion and sedimentation controls be installed prior to any site disturbance and be maintained for the duration of construction activities and until the site is sufficiently stabilized to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer. Three, that all construction shall comply with FEMA standards. Four, prior to any site activity, the applicant shall submit revised plans showing that all erosion and sedimentation controls are located outside of the tidal wetland line and upland of the coastal jurisdiction line. In addition, the plan shall show the extension of the erosion and sedimentation controls along the northern portion of the proposed garage in an effort to contain construction activities. In the event that changes to the approved plans are required as a result of other agency permitting to support the proposed activity, the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission reserves the right to review said changes and may require modifications of this approval. This approval is made based upon the finding that the proposed structure is replacement and reduction of a legally non-conforming structure in the district, and that the standards, prerequisites, and conditions specified by the regulations have been met. The Commission further finds the proposal consistent with all applicable goals and policies in the Coastal Management Act and Section 25 of the Madison zoning regulations. The applicant's effort to maintain adequate soil and erosion controls during construction activities reduces potential impacts to on-site and adjacent coastal resources. The applicant's effort to install a stone infiltration trench for stormwater management is noted. The effective date of this approval is October 3rd, 2024.
Second. Connor, any further discussion, comments?
What's the effective date on the
All in favor? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have 24-31, 21 and 29 Milano Pond Drive, map 114, lots 8, 9, and 8-10. Zone RU1, owners Timothy B. Powers and Melissa Irons, 21 Milano Pond Drive, North Haven Equipment and Leasing LLC, 29 Milano Pond Drive. Applicants Timothy B. Powers and Melissa Irons. Application for lot line revision for lots 17 and 18 of Village Ponds, Section B subdivision.
Good evening, Jeffrey Beatty for the
Welcome.
applicant. So yes, this is a lot line revision application for property in the Village Pond Section B subdivision on Milano Pond Road. The applicants, the Powers, own this property to the north, and North Haven Equipment and Leasing owns 21 or 29 rather, Milano Pond Drive to the south. This parcel, this triangular piece, is about 1/10 of an acre, and it's part of 29, and they want to propose conveying it to 21. Assuming the proposal is approved by the commission, or the application is approved by the commission, the resulting lot size of 29 Milano Pond Drive will be reduced, but the reduced lot still complies with the zoning regulations with regard to the RU1 subdivision, which is where these properties are located. We did apply for a B100A approval from the health department. We received that. So I don't know if any of the commission members drove by the site, but the reason for the transfer is really because if you looked at the property from the street, you would think that this portion of the street, given the of a lot, given the topography and this stone wall, is already a part of 21 Milano Pond Drive. And so it's just these folks acquired the title to this property last year. They're looking to market it, and it was an opportunity for them to make this transfer and kind of avoid any problems with what is of record versus what is in practice with regard to this property. So that's what we're proposing. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So 1/10 of an acre change.
Correct.
Interesting.
This application is for you because the subdivision regulations indicate that any changes to a lot line of an approved subdivision has to return to the commission for that administrative review.
So this in effect makes the other property appear more contiguous.
Exactly. If the driveway for 21 is approximately here, and they've kind of mowed the lawn and have a swing here and all that kind of thing. So it's just to avoid problems down the road.
Sounds good. Any questions? Comments? In that case, we have staff notes and a draft resolution. Morgan, how about?
It's a short one.
We need the microphone, or can I?
The microphone.
Or speak up.
Voted that the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission approve application number 24-31, 21 and 29 Milano Pond Drive, map 114, lots 8 and 9, 8-9 and 8-10, zone RU1. Owners Timothy B. Powers and Melissa Irons, 21 Milano Pond Drive. North Haven Equipment and Leasing LLC, 29 Milano Pond Drive. Applicants Timothy B. Powers and Melissa Irons. Application for lot line revision to lot 17 and 18 of Village Ponds, Section B subdivision as shown on the map. Map showing lot line adjustment, 29 Milano Pond Drive, land being conveyed from 29 to 21 Milano Pond Drive. North Haven Equipment and Leasing LLC by Codis Body and Associates PC dated May 20th, 2024. Effective date of this approval shall be October 4th, 2024, and upon filing of signed Mylar and the land records.
John, second? Andy, any further discussion? All in favor? Good. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda is 24-10-6 Opening Hill Road, and this is a continuation of our deliberations. Before we start, though, I do want to ask Bob O'Connor, seated next to me, who was not here at the last meeting for the first part of the deliberations, to verify that you read the minutes and watched the YouTube video.
Yes, I did both, or 2 hours and a half.
Thanks. In that case, we can continue our deliberations. Just a quick summary. First of all, there's no public participation for this part of the public hearing. And we got into a lot of discussion at our last meeting in deliberations about different conditions that we thought would strengthen the application. And we left at the end of that session saying that we would start by drafting an approval with conditions. And Aaron has done that for us. And it's my understanding, Aaron, that you've also spoken with town council as part of your drafting of this document, just to get some initial feedback on where we're headed, basically.
Right, so my conversations with our attorney, Carrie Olson, was that more specifically to the questions that were raised from Bob Reinhardt regarding the residential component and whether or not there was a conflict with the underlying zoning regulations. I did not have Carrie review the entire draft language. At this point, I wanted the commission to put eyes on it and see if it's going in the right direction, and if you're comfortable moving forward with that. We had general conversations clearly about special exception and incorporating evidence from the record and the same reminders that I provided to the commission at the last meeting. The residential piece is specific to the special exception use. And so when the special exception is applied to a property, it's the uses that are contained therein and not the additional use. So when there are 3 different types of dwellings essentially proposed for this property, the on-site residencies, the staff residency, the artist or guests coming for a longer term stay to 4 months that go through that peer review program, as well as that portion is specific to the special exception, this arts and this philanthropic and educational piece. The dwellings of a staff living there is not in conflict with the underlying zoning regulation, nor is having 2 guests staying, as that's also, as was included in the record, consistent with residential zone. And so the numbers of the maximum number of 8 people is not different than what would be if you had our definition of family in the zoning regulations, which is 6 unrelated people, and you are still allowed to have 2 boarders. So that is consistent with the 8. So Carrie did not see a conflict with that. She did remind the commission to tie in, you have the discretion to look at those experienced guests and determine that parallel to that connection to the philanthropic and educational use, that opportunity. Other than that, there weren't any other red flags that she has raised.
Thank you, Erin. Do any of our commissioners have any questions or comments? I know we have a 10-page document in front of us, and I also want to say that this special exception use of educational and philanthropic is new to us, obviously, and it's very unusual. I guess it's been on the record, it's been on the books and the regulations for over a decade. I'm not sure, Erin, if you've had another one, not in our span here as commissioners. So that's one reason why we've gone into a great deal of detail, spent a lot of time thinking about it, deliberating. I don't know if there's further deliberation that needs to be done, or if it would make sense to go over the sort of history and the process, the facts and findings. And then there are a list of conditions presented to us, which we could go through and see if sort of one by one, see if we're comfortable with them, if that makes sense for everyone.
What I can tell you from this is broken out, this document is broken out into facts and findings, as well as a decision. And so the decision was drafted per your guidance with the approval with conditions to mitigate potential impacts from the various uses associated with the philanthropic and educational programming here. So the findings will take you through, basically you're creating the reasons for your decision in your findings. So there's some standard language in here documenting when was the application was received, when the hearings occurred, who represented the applicant, what specifically is proposed here. It goes through further in referencing the minimum standards for the underlying zone, the minimum standards for the special use that are associated with the special use item, then through the statutes and what your, how your zoning regulations are enabled and the special exception use specifically. And then going through documenting the Tremaine Foundation, their mission and specific programming, how that fits under that philanthropic and educational use definition to satisfy their eligibility to apply for that special exception. And then going through the specifics of the uses, noting what they are, the some of the evidence that's in the record from testimony on the record, and some of the reports. And then acknowledging what some of the concerns were. You talked about these at your last meeting as well. Traffic, noise, septic proximity, lighting, things like that. And the one aspect that I have not drafted around was your last conversations about the events. There was communication between the commissioners on some suggesting to have a reduced number of events while others were suggesting to remove them altogether. So that is something that I would anticipate continue discussions this evening on. So this moving to the decision incorporates all of the conditions that were submitted by the applicant, these self-imposed regulations. Some were, I've edited some from the zoning, just an enforcement perspective, some of the language. But overall, none of those have been eliminated. If anything, they have been expanded. And I'm looking to tell you which one what specifically I changed in them so that you know. The parking management plan, I left a couple of questions here for you to look at as it relates to temporary signage or and seeing some of these that were recommended by the applicant's planner. Nina Peak from SLR had talked about considering police on site for events, things like that, traffic monitoring. And that some of that depends on which direction you move forward here. And I think that's kind of it, but it would be helpful for you to put eyes through this, and if there's additional information you want to add in your findings or things that you want to change. Other evidence that you have cited yourself in the record that you feel is relevant, that would be helpful.
Karen, has there been anything new about with regard to the Guilford County and your tree warden? So here we know something in a reasonable amount of time?
You can't receive any new information.
Oh, that's true.
And so that information was, or that willingness from the applicant was put in the record that if
If
the
the
town
tree
of
is unhealthy.
if the town of Guilford felt the trees were past their point of
No return.
thriving, that they would be removed, the applicant said they were willing to pay for that tree removal if requested. And so that was put as a condition in the language
Okay.
as a follow-up for that.
And Erin, also I want to add that we do not have to make a decision tonight. You can read through all this,
That might be good.
go through all the conditions, think about it. And if we add anything, maybe have that run by town council again too.
Right. It would be helpful for feedback this evening, though, so that any of those changes can be made, or that information, just in the interest of time, can be provided to town council for feedback and any necessary edits before your next meeting, rather than considering it independently at home and then coming back
I see,
on the 3rd.
right.
And then we'd be kicking it down the road.
So
another 2
raise it
weeks.
tonight.
So if we could go through, I mean, there's time.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Just a quick point from the process. We spent last 2.5 hours talking mainly about meetings, gatherings, events, and the limitation on those. But none of that is here. It's kind of back to where it was.
That's what you say.
Yeah, which I understand. So are you saying to reinvent the wheel again? Or that's where I guess, again, I just,
Well, we didn't reach any decisions, we discussed them for sure. And I think we had different perspectives on where we should go with them. But yeah, that's why it's written out more clearly now so that we can see what it is we're responding to.
So, yes, the page 3 that shows specifically the uses that are proposed, those are as written by the applicant, as proposed, so that they're clear. And then from there, you can edit. So if you had said, some of the concerns of the overlapping start times and finish times, those were already suggested in the conditions, and that's there. But determination of whether or not you wanted a maximum of 2 meetings a day or how many you wanted, that I have not added those in there because that should come from you what your decision is. This is the shell, and then we start putting those.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Conditions
I thought, again, I made a mistake. I thought that we had drafted, or not drafted, but outlined, like events, we said, X number per month, per year, and so forth. But we don't have that in front of us. I guess it's on video, but we're going to start again and kind of each one and go through it.
There wasn't any consensus from everybody.
No, I understand that, but
Yeah,
but we had a draft,
We had a draft
of stuff to look at. Now we have to talk about that draft again.
right. And for the record, I think it is good to have the facts and findings clearly presented, which also means reading through them, Erin.
Yeah.
I think that we have had a summary from you, if that's sufficient, or if for the record, it's better to just go ahead and read it all.
You should read through them, yes. And I think, and that's, based on feedback that you've received, yes, those are, the conversation specifically was events, was the biggest concern at the last meeting. There was question, to briefly recap, the number of gatherings are proposed at 4 per month. Question was whether or not that was too much. I think, Andy, that's what you had raised for those. You also raised concerns about the usage of shuttle buses for gatherings. And then the other question with meetings was whether or not, right now, this proposal before you is to have unlimited meetings of less than 12 people on the property. And the question was whether or not there should be a limit to the number of meetings per day or per week, per month, however you want to do that.
Yep.
I can pull up the calendar, whatever information you want to pull up to look at those for examples, I can pull the file up
No, I remember that. And again, just for the record, it wasn't, I think it was a few of us who voiced the same concern, going back and forth over numbers and so forth. So I'm not just from,
Yes,
just figure out how to move this from here to there.
exactly.
Do we want
That's-
to, do we just pick each one and finalize, make some recommendations? Otherwise, we're going to keep going back and forth.
Andy, I have a little higher level question, and I thought I raised this last time, is what is the process for monitoring this plan? How is this plan monitored? Who's responsible for monitoring it? And how is it, what's the review process on this plan on an ongoing basis? That the logistics around this operating plan, to me, are concerning.
The zoning enforcement officer enforces the zoning regulations, any conditions of any permits.
So that would be based on complaints or problems that were noted. How does that work?
Well, first a plan is presented in October of each year, and then that's reviewed. And then, if there are complaints, they would go to the zoning enforcement officer.
So
Correct.
The public, the neighbors, the monitoring of the plan would fall on the neighbors.
The plan, the calendar of upcoming events is provided to the land use office, to the
And the
commission.
commission.
So the zoning officer has that and is aware of what, would be aware of when things are scheduled. I would assume that generally speaking, meetings are not going to be the major concern. It's these larger type events and the times of those. One of the, you have possibilities of requiring traffic control during a larger event, incorporating that into a condition that the applicant is responsible for having someone oversee that, as well as the monitoring of the noise level, as was proposed. But that's, that typically in zoning approvals, it's the zoning enforcement officer who approves, who monitors. That's your boots on the ground, essentially, as with every other application that you have approved with conditions.
All right, so let me put a scenario together. So let's say a number of neighbors saw one of the events that was a large one, and they found it to be excessively noisy, which is a legitimate concern. All right. and they would contact the zoning enforcement officer. And would he go to some other event equivalent to it and verify this himself, or would he just take the notes of the neighbors and use that as information to bring to the commission?
I think it would depend specifically on what the concern is. If there are, late hours and complaints, there may be a off hour of a complaint filed with the police department that would back up a claim. The zoning enforcement officer would, has contact information that's in the operating plan, would have to go back and reach out to the applicant. You also have in the operating plan, the requirement that if there are complaints or enforcement orders, that is reported to you for review. And non-compliance with not just your regulations, but any other agency's regulations would then cause you to have the right to cause a hearing by notification of the applicant and the neighbors and bring the applicant back in with respect to enforcement. The nature of zoning is, as with a lot of enforcement, is reactionary. That's
As with any large event in town that's noisy and, goes past the hours, that's what we do, we complain. I mean, I think on a more personal level, regular residential uses, I think ideally you'd go to the owner first if there's a noisy party, say, happening, and see if you can calm it down, quiet it down. If not, then we could call the police. Yeah.
the idea of this operating plan is in place for some of these special use, these farm special use programs, farm to table dinners, things of that nature, camps and whatnot, in which our zoning officer is familiar with getting these operational plans each calendar year and reviewing them with the operator of the farm.
Does that answer your question, John?
It's an answer to questions.
Okay.
But there's a lot of regulations. You can't really expect the town to be surveilling everybody about everything happening in town.
I just want to mention this.
Understand.
I agree with him that there needs to be some mechanism, we understand it, that's available if there are problems with it. Not that they would be monitoring regularly. Also, I had a question. Carol, did we not talk about at some point the idea of making sure people weren't parking on the road?
Yeah, and I think, is that a condition even, Erin? It was, we certainly talked about it, or putting up no parking signs.
Or something to prevent people from parking on the road?
Yeah, and I think, in fact, the applicant offered.
Yeah, there's no
that.
parking.
That's on page 9. That was, so the applicants certified planner who reviewed the compliance with comprehensive plan and zoning regulations made the recommendation that a parking management plan should be utilized for the uses approved under the special exception. Specifically stated that for meetings and philanthropic and educational gatherings, so meetings and gatherings, the foundation staff shall be required to manage on-site parking, which includes the placement of temporary no parking signs on Opening Hill Road and Indigo Way, which Ms. Peak highlighted, the Planning and Zoning Commission may want to consider permanent no parking signs in the area. So, and then the second was in advance of the events, the foundation shall be required to identify specific on-site parking off-site parking locations, and then coordinate with the town of Madison police and fire departments for traffic and safety management. And her note, again, here was that the commission may want to consider requiring robust parking enforcement, including requiring a police officer at the site during events. Now, that is within your purview to require the applicant to hire a police officer for traffic control during an event. But you don't necessarily have the authority to require permanent no parking signs on Opening Hill Road. What you could do there, and that could be a conversation again with our legal counsel, my understanding is that you need to go through the local traffic control for permission for any no parking. And so if that's a temporary versus a permanent, that call ultimately would come from the police department.
Okay. Thank you.
You could recommend one or require at least that the applicant consult the police department for.
John, I have a similar concern about the operating plan and it's the ability to monitor it. And while I haven't constructed what it might be, I think there's a way for us to craft the conditions on the approval in such a way to not require an operating plan. I'd rather just say this is what's approved and be done with it, as opposed to having continuous review of this. I'm not sure, like you, it's going to follow the neighbors, or it's going to be reactionary, in which case it's not going to be effective. So I'd rather try to find something, if possible, just not require the operating plan, which is going to put a burden on town staff, on us if it's excessive, or if there is pushback on any of the events. So I don't know how to do it yet, but I think that's one option. And then the other thing I thought I'd say is a lot of the downstream conditions with respect to traffic and some of the other ones all jump off of the use of the property for the meetings, gatherings, and events. So I really think it'd be beneficial for us to tackle those and say, okay, what do we agree with as far as those three things? If the events end up being off the table and not approved, a lot of the downstream stuff just goes away. We don't need to worry about robust parking plans. We say gatherings are on-site parking only. We can start to eliminate some of the more troublesome issues with respect to the monitoring. Right. So, and I think that's the biggest one to discuss anyway. The rest are really just the details associated with those decisions.
I guess sort of take a step back, and I don't want to revisit everything, but top of page 3, there's a statement that Madison Planning and Zoning Commission shall grant special exemption from it only if it shall find that. And number B is the public convenience and welfare will be substantially served. As you only give the approval if this these folks coming into town, that the public convenience and welfare will be substantially served. And I don't know if I'm hearing that these galas are gonna be good for Madison, that public convenience and welfare for Madison is being served by that. I'm just bringing that up.
The public is invited to come and visit at any one of these events.
I wonder if we should just take a deep breath for a sec, and before we jump into page 3, would you mind if I read up to that, and then we can follow through? Sure. Because that will get us to the events. It should. And then we'll start at page 3, which is the meetings, gatherings, and events issues, which I think is what you all want to talk about.
Yeah, I guess, I'm not, do we have to read through the whole thing? Is that?
I'll be as quick as I can. I think it's helpful to have facts and findings that our decision-making is and have it read into the public record, even though it means hearing it maybe again. But it's, it's been compiled in a way that is really useful, I think, and legally helpful for us to support whatever decision-making it happens.
I mean, that's at the discretion of you, Madam Chair, and the commission. If folks haven't had an opportunity to read it, then most definitely I would say you should read through it now.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and read to page 3. Facts and findings. This is for 24-10, 6 Opening Hill Road. The Planning and Zoning Commission has received this application, 24-10, 6 Opening Hill Road, map 70, lot 1-14, zone RU1, from owner applicant, the Emily Hall Tremaine Foundation Incorporated, for a special exception permit pursuant to section 5.4A and 3.4C for philanthropic and educational use of the property, which includes arts, architecture, and other philanthropic and educational exhibits, meetings, tours, on-site residencies, events, studio, and collaborative space. Applicants' administrative offices and a museum gallery store, all is more specifically and fully set forth in the statement of use and project description as amended, which is included with the application and on file with the Planning and Zoning Commission. A public hearing commenced on May 16th, 2024 at a hybrid meeting in person and via Zoom platform, and was continued on June 20th, 2024, July 16th, 2024, August 1st, 2024, and August 15th, 2024, also hybrid in person and via Zoom platform. At this 5th meeting, the commission closed the public hearing. Deliberations were tabled to September 5th, 2024, and continued on September 19th, 2024. This proposal includes a request by the applicant to allow the Emily Hall Tremaine Foundation to substantially restore and preserve the existing historic structures, grounds, and landscaping on the site, which include a main house with additions, a barn, pool, and surface parking for 12 vehicles. The project does not propose any new buildings. The applicant will install a new subsurface sewage disposal system to service the house and barn. They are also proposing to install a gravel overflow parking area. The foundation looks to utilize the property for philanthropic and educational uses, which include administrative offices, meetings, gatherings, events, and on-site residencies, including a kitchen. As shown on the subsurface sewage disposal system plan and the site plan prepared for the Emily Hall Tremaine Foundation by Summerhill Civil Engineering and Land Surveyors, PC, the applicant is not proposing any activities within the 100-foot inland wetlands and watercourses upland review area, and therefore has not made application to the Madison Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency. Additionally, it is noted that the subject property is not located within the coastal zone. Attorney Christopher M. McKeon of Burstein, Volpe and McKeon, PC, Michelle Knappick, president of the Emily Hall Tremaine Foundation, Michael Ott, PE, LS of Summerhill Civil Engineering and Land Surveyors, PC, David G. Sullivan, PE, and Nina Peak, AICP, both of SLR International Corporation, and Mark Nato, SRA, Real Estate Appraisers and Consultants, all provided testimony as to the details of the application on behalf of the applicant. The commission acknowledges that significant public input has been received during this hearing process, both through written and oral testimony. Various concerns have been raised by residents regarding this proposal. As a result, the applicant further clarified and modified the proposed statement of use in an effort to address such concerns. The commission understands that the applicant has withdrawn the 0.17 acre parcel on Indigo Trail, identified as map 70, lot 1-14 from this application, as a response to objection raised during the hearing regarding the declaration of restrictive covenants by Indigo Woods LLC dated September 19th, 1995, and recorded in volume 672, page 277. The subject property is located in the Rural Residential 1, RU1 district. The minimum lot area for the zone is 80,000 square feet with 48,000 square feet buildable land, minimum lot width of 200 feet, maximum building coverage of 10%, maximum building height of 30 feet, minimum front yard of 40 feet, minimum rear yard of 30 feet, and minimum side yards each of 30 feet. The parcel is 6 acres and complies with the minimum lot area as well as minimal buildable land. The width of the property exceeds the 200-foot limit. The existing buildings on the site are compliant with minimum lot coverage for the RU1 zone and for the philanthropic use per section 3.4C, as well as required side and rear yard setbacks. However, they are not in conformance with the front setback regulation. The proposed project would not change the location of the existing structures, nor will it expand the legal nonconformity. Section 8-2 of the Connecticut General Statutes enables the Commission to establish zoning regulations. It further allows the Commission to provide through regulations that certain classes or kinds of buildings, structures, or use of land are permitted only after obtaining a special permit or special exception subject to standards set forth in the regulations and to conditions necessary to protect the public health, safety, convenience, and property values. The Madison zoning regulations in rural district section 5.4 allows specific uses permitted by special exception. These include the same uses permitted and in the same manner as a residence district. Within the residence district, section 3.4C of the zoning regulations, philanthropic, educational, recreational, or religious uses, excluding correctional institutions and institutions for the support of persons with mental disabilities, are permitted by special exception pursuant to section 4.2 through 4.8. The uses permitted in this section may have a building coverage of 15%. The zoning regulations do not define this particular use in section 19 of the regulations, but note that except as defined below, the words used in these regulations shall have the meaning commonly attributed to them. The applicant provided testimony from Nina Peak, AICP, which included definitions commonly used to attributed to philanthropic uses. The Emily Hall Tremaine Foundation is a private tax-exempt 501c3 organization that distributes and is supported by funds set aside for humanitarian purposes. Their mission has been provided in the application documents, which indicate that the foundation seeks and funds innovative projects that advance solutions to basic and enduring problems. With an overall emphasis on education, the foundation takes an active role in three major areas: art, environment, and learning differences. The foundation serves to educate family members in philanthropy, service, and stewardship. The applicant notes that since its inception, the foundation has donated over $100 million in grants in furtherance of its mission. In light of the information provided by the applicant, the Commission acknowledges both by the mission statement and philanthropic efforts of the foundation and finds the applicant eligible to apply for special exception use under sections 5.4 and 3.4C of the zoning regulations. In deciding a special use application, the Commission is bound by Section 4 of the regulations, which prescribes the application process, considerations, and other procedures involved. Special exception uses are those permitted by the regulations as appropriate, harmonious, and desirable within the district, so long as certain criteria are met. However, these uses have certain characteristics which require their location within the district to be considered on an individual basis so as to weigh the impact of the use upon the surrounding area against the desirability of that use. It is noted and evidenced in the record that the applicant has provided the necessary application form and supplemental information necessary to be deemed complete. In accordance with section 4.3, the applicant attended the June 11th, 2024 meeting of the Advisory Committee on Community Appearance seeking comments and recommendations. The committee endorsed the project and preservation of the buildings and recommended that any changes pertaining to parking, lighting, or landscaping return to that committee for review. The Madison Planning and Zoning Commission shall grant a special exception permit only if it shall find that A, the proposed use or uses are permitted uses in the district and that the standard prerequisites and conditions specified in the regulations have been met. B, the public convenience and welfare will be substantially served and the appropriate use of neighboring property will not be substantially or permanently injured. And C, the proposed uses are in accordance with the comprehensive plan. The regulations further state that special consideration shall be given to the nature of the proposed site and its surrounding area and the extent to which the proposed use might impair the present and future use and development of the area, including its effect upon nearby dwellings, churches, schools, public buildings, and other places of public gathering, taking into account the width of the streets, traffic conditions, and the general effect of the proposed use on public travel. All special exception permits may be granted subject to conditions and safeguards required to preserve public health, safety, convenience, welfare, and the property values of surrounding areas. The components of the proposed philanthropic and educational uses are evidenced in the application documents and oral testimony. And the Commission will consider each use individually. So this is where on page 3, we land on the different uses. Beginning with administrative offices, the Emily Hall Tremaine Foundation seeks to utilize no more than 1,500 square feet of the existing buildings for administrative offices. The applicant indicates that current staffing for the foundation includes 2 full-time and 2 part-time employees that primarily work remotely. It is anticipated that staff will utilize this office space 1 day per week and during any site programming. Does anyone have any concerns or issues about that use. The administrative use.
Is the Tremaine Foundation saying that they will only have 4 total employees working at the site at any one time?
That's how I
Ever?
read it. Yeah.
Ever?
That's how I read it.
That's current staffing. Doesn't say total.
Suggesting to limit it to 4 or change the number.
Yeah, do you want to
No, I'm
add
just
that
saying
as
that, it
a
doesn't say that
condition?
it's
No, I agree. It just says current staff.
Where it says current, it's all.
Tomorrow,
They plan to be.
500 people.
But it's their office.
Let's stay within reasonable,
Just make it one.
They've limited the office space to 1,500 square feet.
Yeah.
How many people can you stuff in there?
and they do talk about
I'm just
working
saying.
remotely.
The 4 was also included in the parking calculations, assessing the parking. That's
Meetings, the applicant is requesting an,
I'm sorry, did we do something there?
no, I was just going to the, I thought
Oh, I thought you wanted to
administrative.
take, I'm sorry, I thought you wanted to take these one at a time.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Did you,
I thought I did. Administrative offices we just discussed, and if
Oh,
there's,
did we decide to limit? I'm sorry, I missed it. If we
No,
did.
I'm with John on this. We didn't decide it.
no, we didn't decide anything.
The office space itself is limited, so I would think that's
If you
limiting.
have issues or limits that you want to place upon them, maybe take note, and when we get down to the conditions, we can add it.
Site residences, we might want there to be.
Let's stick with let's not jump around. I agree with Carol. Let's just, I think the administrative offices, if there's a discussion to be had, we should have it.
But
So
let's
we don't-
wait till we get down to conditions to make those additions. Is that okay? I mean, take note.
Yeah.
Now,
But talk about it now and come to some level.
but keep moving along if that's okay.
Sorry, are we gonna talk about it?
Yes, talk about it.
Did you have
Well, I,
Do you have further comment on that?
thoughts?
I guess
about-
it is there anyone else on the commission that thinks there should be some sort of cap on how many employees should be allowed in the administrative offices?
Yes.
It seems like there should be something. And is it limited to the parking available? Or,
I thought it was, I mean, I look at it, it's by the 1,500 square feet of office, or spaces are gonna use for administration, is the limiting factor.
my house
What-
is maybe 1,800 square feet. I could fit 100 workers in there if I wanted to. I mean, what,
Maybe we'd ever do it.
no, but I mean, is there,
John, are you suggesting just a max number of 4 employees on site?
Not to exceed.
I mean, if that's, sure. Sure.
Do you want to suggest a number not to exceed, or should we
I
talk about
thought,
that?
I think we just said 4.
4, so not to exceed 4. Staff.
Both full-time and part-time.
Combined.
Which is what they've said.
Yeah, right.
That's what their current staffing is, yes.
Which seems reasonable because if they needed more people to work, say remotely, they could do that.
Yeah.
So.
So instead of saying include, it would not to exceed.
On site.
On
That's
site.
on site.
I think that might have to apply specifically to administrative,
Yeah.
for the administrative office, because if there's a
Yeah.
meeting, there may be more
Just make sure we can
employees
include those.
under that
Right.
umbrella.
This is for administrative offices.
Yes.
I agree.
John, are you comfortable with that?
Working out of that site. is what we're saying.
Yes, yes.
So adjust the language. Okay, meetings. The applicant is requesting an unlimited number of meetings on site, which will be by invitation only or by prior appointment for up to 12 persons to support the foundation's mission. These meetings will not be revenue generating and are intended to support the foundation's mission statement. All meetings would occur between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and 8 a.m. through 9 p.m. Friday and Saturday. Food and beverage may be served and prepared on site in the service kitchen or by outside catering services. The parking for meetings shall occur on site with any overflow parking located off-site and serviced by a temporary shuttle bus operation. So. Thoughts?
I guess the first thought is why we need a temporary shuttle if there's only up to 12 people.
Yeah.
So that's,
Well, if there's several meetings at the same time.
well, yeah, that's something different.
There's a condition later on that says only one meeting at a time, with a 1 hour in between.
Well, we have a constraint in there that it can't be overlapping.
Right.
Yes.
I would propose 3 changes for
Okay,
consideration and arguing. First, I'm not comfortable with the unlimited number of meetings per day. So I'm thinking 2 per day would be adequate to conduct their business. They shouldn't need much more than that.
so when they say, just for clarification, Bob, they say unlimited number of meetings on site, which I think they mean by the year, but you want to say
Yes, I would say 2 per day.
not to exceed 2 per day.
Yes.
Okay.
Second one is the 12 person should be inclusive of staff.
Just have a question on the 2 per day. How, you talk about trying to manage something. How would anybody ever manage if there's more than 2 meetings?
You mean monitor and.
You mean, you're talking about a meeting of 12, you're worried about 4 meetings of 12 people and all the traffic that's gonna generate? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it seems like it's not necessary. Yeah, it's the traffic and the noise.
And then you have to define meeting. I think it's very.
The meeting is defined there, 12 people.
That's just the number of people, but.
It's actually defined more robustly somewhere else, I think in the original application.
No, but there's usually a purpose of a meeting.
Bob, what would be your view of the impact if there were more than 2?
It's trying to balance the needs of the applicant with the impact on the neighborhood. And so when I go through all these, the volume of meetings, we have 2 or 3, each of those meetings will have up to 12 people. Now we can limit how many people. Right now, you could assume there's a time when they could have as many meetings they could fit in a day with a 1 hour gap between each one or 12 people. That's a lot of cars in and out, much more than was originally presented during the traffic
Or
study.
it could be one shuttle.
Or 1 shuttle bus, but we don't need shuttle buses, because that's the third one I would say is no off-site parking. There's 24 parking spots, 12 already there, and the 12 gravel in the back. That's more than needed to host the meetings. So you don't need off-site parking for the meetings, you can just come to the office, have your meeting. When you finish, you can leave. If there's 4 or 5 meetings in a day, maybe 4 might be an hour, but the hour, I think it's an hour. 4 or 5 in a day, you can have 12 ins and 12 outs times that number. So you can have 60 ins and outs, which is far in excess of what the traffic study suggested is typical for a home.
So you have concerns about traffic.
Yeah, so I didn't do the math on it too. 2 seems to be a balance where you've got staff, 4 people working there all day. They can get on the phone, you can have virtual meetings. But if you need to bring people together, 2 a day seems to be
One in the
probably more
morning,
than
one
you
in
can
the
handle with
afternoon.
4 staff people. It's,
Yeah.
you gotta prep for it, you gotta do it, you gotta finish it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of meetings.
So instead of being the number of meetings or the number of people, why don't we do something now like the shuttle bus? If enforcing by use of.
Madam
shuttle
Chair.
buses,
Mike's
it
gonna
would
need the microphone.
constrain.
You're gonna need to use the mic.
Because you're facing away from the microphone.
So if we had them, for the meetings that were limited at 12 people, or if we use a shuttle bus, that would minimize your concern about traffic.
No, you don't need that, because, yes, it could, I'll grant you that, it could. But the meetings are up to 12 people, there's no need for that shuttle bus. I'm trying to make this as neighborhood friendly as possible.
I
And the
understand,
foundation
but
wants,
we're not in a position to know what they need or what they don't.
I know, but I'm in a position to decide what I think is acceptable. They didn't give me enough information to make a decision on that. I asked for a lot of information, and I didn't get all of it, so I'm stuck with what I got. Yeah, I'm with you, it's good,
Okay, so I've got
arguing is good.
not to exceed 2 meetings per day,
That's right.
up to 12.
12 people inclusive of staff, and I would say there's no overflow parking, it's not necessary.
Yeah, I
There's
don't
plenty
think
of
we need a
parking
shuttle.
You don't need a shuttle.
Okay.
Is that foundation staff you're referring to?
Yeah, that one of the other, the gathering said including, if they said excluding foundation staff, we'll get to that next, but I think if you include foundation staff, it gets past the idea that you might need more than 4 foundation people at a meeting like this to make it effective. And since we're limiting it to 4, the meeting should be, just make it inclusive so we can make sure the parking works and it all just fits in nicely.
Any other comments about meetings?
You guys can make it straight. So,
No, my only other concern is, again, if these are the weekends, say to do it Saturday and Sunday, so if these are meetings, it's not profit, but they're business meetings or whatever, what's the purpose of having traffic again on Saturday or Sunday?
I thought about that.
Irrespective of shuttle buses or people,
Yeah.
that's more. I mean, during the week's one thing, it's a neighborhood, it's not an office park. So,
I thought about that, and my only response was that being a philanthropic foundation, their meetings may require people who can't be there during the week, they're donors, something like that. So I didn't think it appropriate to say you can't meet on the weekend. Maybe we can limit it on the weekends to a less frequency. But I think for them to effectively conduct their foundation, they need to be free to meet on the weekends. That's my thought. I get your point, though. I went through that same exercise in my head. It makes sense.
yeah, I'm just thinking, this time of the neighborhood gets break from that.
I know.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
I thought-
I don't think they're gonna be meeting every
We
day
can't
of the
hear
year.
you.
I don't, we have no idea.
Well, we did see an example of their calendar.
We're not gonna argue about this.
Yeah,
That's
I
an
know.
example of the calendar. It is not a commitment to do only that.
Unless we make it a condition.
Yeah, we could do that.
We want to orchestrate it.
But then we have to fix this first, and then we can, the calendar's just the end result of whatever we say here, and they have to plan around that. That's just the output.
Well, I felt that we were informed by their proposed calendar, and maybe, we could say, there's gonna be 500 people coming or something, but, based on what they've shared with us, which is, helpful to me to see what their calendar looks like.
Yeah.
It may suddenly jump and be, everyday meetings twice a day. I doubt it, but we could put that in as a condition.
Yeah, no, that's where we're at. Yeah, I mean, I think we have to. I just believe that the calendar, it's fine, it's a tool, it could be any other. A bunch of different vehicles, I just think that's the output of what we decide here. And then someone has to monitor that. And make sure that, extra meetings aren't being held. I'm not sure how you really do that, but.
Can we move on to gatherings?
Okay.
So the applicant is seeking allowance for up to 4 gatherings per calendar month, which will be philanthropic or educational in nature and have no less than 13 and no more than 25 persons in attendance, excluding foundation staff and programming staff. Similar to the meetings, these gatherings may serve food and beverage either prepared on site in the kitchen or through outside catering services. Gatherings would be limited to the same hours of operation as meetings, 8 a.m. through 6 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 8 a.m. through 9 p.m. Friday and Saturday. The parking for gatherings shall be the same as for meetings. These gatherings will not be revenue generating and are intended to support the mission statement of the foundation. So when they say the same as for meetings, they are including the use of shuttles as needed. So this is 4 gatherings per calendar month.
I think that's too much. That's what I was last couple weeks ago, whenever we were here personally. I think to go with 1 a month, is that? Throw that out there, but still concerned about it. There's a lot of people. There's no mention here of either the shuttle buses, or you just said something about that.
Well, they refer to the paragraph, to the meetings description, which does include shuttles, but we're saying we're not, or we're striking that, so they're no shuttles for the 12 meeting, the 12-person meetings or less or fewer. But over 12, it would be good to use shuttles. Up to 25
Because there wouldn't,
persons.
because there wouldn't be parking for 25. Necessarily, not
Right.
individually. so
I'm,
we'd
I'm
have-
sorry, that is in the applicant's proposal under gatherings. That is not in my note. It says gatherings shall occur between the hours, all right, that's in there. Hours of 8 AM to 6 PM, Sunday through Thursday, 8 AM through and 9 PM, Friday and Saturday. All parking for philanthropic and educational gatherings shall be on the site with overflow parking staged off-site and serviced by a temporary shuttle with vehicle to have the capacity to carry no more than 20 people. No street parking. There shall be no more than 4 per month. Okay. So yes, you're correct, there's shuttle.
Any other thoughts about how many gatherings per month? Andy suggested not to exceed one per month.
One seems, this is 25 people plus staff plus program. That could be like 50 people.
Good point.
So yeah, I would say one a month.
Should we limit total number of attendees? Try to minimize the.
Yeah, it would be good to not to exceed total of attendees.
Yeah.
It's not just attendees, it's also,
Staff there,
Staff.
so if you roll it all together, what's that number?
Yeah.
well, it's also, I would assume there's food servers or presenters. Are they all considered attendees?
Not that far off.
That's also applies to meetings for their upcoming service kitchen and outside catering.
But that's just, you know,
That's a delivery. Right.
No, not if it's prepared on site.
but that may not be the case. Or for catering services, right? So
Right.
there could be trucks. I guess, what's just the point? What's the point of, maybe I'm missing it, it says up to 4 gatherings per calendar month, which will be philanthropic or educational nature and have no less than 13 and no more than 25.
It's the next size up from meetings, so meetings not to exceed 12, so then the next.
I get it. So then if we have, so
Is it-
therefore, if there's 11 people, but, you know, then my point is gatherings and meetings should be the same restrictions, same definitions. Otherwise, if we have something less restrictive for meetings, so to speak, and if all of a sudden the gathering falls into the meetings category because 11 people show up instead of 13 or more, does that change it?
It's the frequency, I think, is the important.
Yeah. I'm picking on the language because I don't want to get caught on the technicality of the language.
Andy, what about unlimited meetings, or I'm sorry, 2 meetings per day, up to 12 people? Any meeting over 12 people could be held once a month.
In the original documentation, meetings and gatherings, what they were doing were identical.
Yeah.
They were defined exactly the same, it's just a number of people.
Yeah.
And whether it required off-site parking or not. So if we go with that direction, and that kind of.
Combining meetings and gatherings.
Yeah.
It's just, it's artificial differentiation, trying to organize it, maybe it's not necessary.
Yeah.
But saying not to exceed 1 per month and not to exceed 25 people.
Sure.
Yeah. People.
Still have both concepts.
Attendees.
Well, attendees. I mean, if you're gonna make a distinction between, I guess, meetings and gatherings. to
Well,
me,
wait a minute. So you're not trying to understand, if there's a caterer
Mike.
there, if there's staff people there.
Microphone?
If there's a caterer there, if there's a staff people there, I think the intention of the 25 is to have 25 people participate in the gathering of the event. And then there's people above that that are serving the event.
Okay. I get that, and I guess maybe that's why it was broken out, but it seems like we're splitting hairs here. It's like a meeting.
Well, I don't
A
want,
meeting could become a gathering could become a meeting. And
I
then
don't
again,
want to put a clamp on 25 to mean that there are only 25 humans that can be on the property. If the intention is to have caterers, staff people, and other people in attendance above it.
Yeah, and you went there, the number is bigger than 25 if you want to allow.
Talking about
other
attendees
Yeah, attendees plus, plus.
for this activity, this use. And I think to the foundation, it may mean something more that we're not, getting the nuances of their language to what qualifies as a meeting and what's a gathering.
Well, I believe it has to do with frequency.
Size of people. Yeah.
That's part of it.
I mean, that's the key part, and gatherings are larger, but they were limiting the larger gatherings. I mean, you call them meetings and gatherings, but it's a pretty good distinction when you're talking about frequency, because the original, they wanted an unlimited number of meetings. So I think separation is worthwhile.
So it is good to break it down by number of attendees.
The applicant did
And frequency.
define a meeting
Frequency.
and gathering. A meeting shall consist of invitation only and/or by prior appointment, indoor and outdoor programs and gatherings of up to 12 persons for exhibits, lectures, discussions, meetings, conferences, retreats, seminars, tours, artist, architect, and designer studios, incubator space for aspiring artists, architects, and designers, all of which are in furtherance of and/or in support of the foundation's mission statement. And then under gatherings, the philanthropic and educational gatherings, it says, which are the same as meetings, but with more than 12 persons.
Okay, that's all right. Thank you.
Yes, I think it's a difference without much of a distinction.
Yeah. So again, not to exceed total attendees of 25 people and not to exceed one time once per month.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, we might be asking the same question, go ahead.
Are we combining meetings and gatherings into one?
I thought keep them
You
separate
can
because
keep
they're
them separate,
different.
I think.
Keep them separate.
Conceptually, yes, we are.
Okay,
Keep
why?
them separate,
Why?
I don't have a good reason.
Are we combining or keeping them separate?
Just keeping them separate just because of the flow of the document, the way it was originally done.
Yeah,
They're different.
And their numbers of people.
Yeah.
Like I said, to me, I didn't get that there were different concepts, it's just a different number.
Just number of attendees.
That's what we're
And
more
frequency.
concerned.
And frequency.
And frequency.
Right, so if we're saying a meeting over 12 people can only happen once.
Yeah, we can do that too.
Yeah. It simplifies.
Yeah,
This thing,
It
there's,
does.
this thing is so confusing already. There's so many conditions.
In other words, combine both of them and make the maximum 25 attendees.
Yeah.
Once a month.
Once a month.
Okay.
That's why they're separate. That's why you would make them separate.
I know, but we're starting to split hairs on stuff.
But we've said for the meetings up to 12 people, not to exceed 2 per day. Whereas the gatherings,
yeah.
we're saying
That's right.
not to exceed 1 time per month.
Yeah, but it's someone, again, just on the words, if there's less than 13 people, that they consider it a gathering, they put it a gathering on this calendar, it's just a meeting.
Do we need to worry about that?
And then they could say, well, we have less than 13
But that's-
people, we can have
that's
it twice a day.
That's John's
That's
point.
fine, so might as well just combine them together anyway.
Yeah, it's John's point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got this all down, Aaron?
No. No.
I get it.
So,
Just,
I don't know.
Carol, quickly, so I agree with Bob on the meetings, right? It's 2 per day.
Right.
And the reasoning is that there's an intensity of use. So if there were more, then it would be too intense, which raises safety concerns, traffic. Fine. And what the foundation's proposing is, for example, September says 2 meetings. So your proposal makes sense. But I think we have to have some type of reasoning, or better reasoning for this gathering limitation. Because why, for example, would it be okay on a Monday, not a Tuesday? I'm not saying that's a bad limit. I'm just saying for the record, we need to develop that a little bit to attach a reason to it. And we haven't attached a reason to it. So specifically for us, in order to limit the gatherings, the larger meetings, 25 people, why? Only one per month.
Based on the evidence. And
You're saying based on the traffic study?
well, no, so I get his point. It can't be just a random.
That's why I don't see a distinction between these two different. Okay. A lot of it, whether it's a meeting or gathering, we're ending up in the same place. It's about number of people. I don't care what you call it, hoedown. Number of people and frequency. Keep coming back to. So I think there should be I think we should look at a cap on both. The number of people that can attend, how often. Whether it's a meeting, or whether it's a gathering, right? That doesn't matter. What that number should be.
So I think what I've heard is that not to exceed 25 attendees, not to exceed once per month. That's what you're proposing. And it's not based on traffic
And
studies.
John's, your point was that's fine, but what is the reasoning behind that limitation?
Exactly.
We can talk about the meetings being the total volume of cars we have. What is the driving fact set that says one is okay, but four is not?
Right.
That's right.
That's right. Because otherwise it's arbitrary.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And I don't have any good answer, except that there is some limit, right, at which we talked about traffic. But I think I'm back to noise. So I think the 150 was the easier way to approach it. That was too much. Get there next. But what's the limit for a meeting on this property?
I mean, we haven't voted on any of this, or, we're having the deliberation, the discussions, and proposing changes or additional conditions. So I'm going to keep taking notes. Aaron, you're taking notes. Maybe when we get down to the conditions, we can see how this fits what we've got so far.
Well, adding conditions is one thing, but you have to have findings as well,
Exactly.
as
Which is
John
why,
has
Andy,
indicated.
Your proposal to change the number of larger gatherings, meetings of 25 people, not to exceed, saying you want to reduce it from 4 times a month to once a month. What is that based on?
I don't think I think my rationale is based on planning zone exception permit. The above public convenience, it's not going to be welfare will not be substantially concerned by having more. So therefore, by limiting it, I think that.
What informs you that that's going to be a problem?
I think traffic informs me on that.
The traffic study?
Yeah, I don't agree with it, but it's personal. I just think there's a lot of traffic down that road. It's unaccounted.
Okay, we'll have to run this by legal counsel, I think, too.
This is a consensus amongst the commission when you're determining the.
What I'm doing at this point is just collecting information and proposals, Aaron. I'm not saying that this is what we want to
Right,
write
but
into the
when you,
conditions.
right, but when a decision is made, you need to cite the record as to why. That's.
Okay.
But if I could propose we go to the idea that we need to tag on the finding that support limitation.
Correct.
If we go to the events, because
Yeah, the events, yeah.
the events, because my primary concern there is the traffic. And we can see if that concern then rolls over into the
It
gathering.
informs us back to the smaller.
Sometimes I think it can, but you'll need to test my logic.
Okay, so can we move on to events? I'm going to read it.
Not forgetting any of these, but come back to it right away.
Events, the applicant is requesting approval for events that are specifically defined in the statement of use as indoor and/or outdoor experiences, receptions, open houses, presentations, lectures, classes, and exhibits, all of which are or may be open to the public by advanced reservation, and the attendance at which will exceed 25 persons as limited by self-imposed conditions. These conditions indicate that attendance cannot exceed 150. So again, this is between 25 and 100, or more than 25 people, not to exceed 150 people. Events may be held between the hours of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Friday and Saturday. The total number of events shall not exceed 1 per month, nor shall there be more than 3 per calendar year. All parking for the events shall be off-site, and a temporary shuttle operation shall be utilized. Portable lavatories will be provided for all events and located according to the submitted site plan. So any thoughts on these larger events, 3 per year?
I think we should allow that to occur every year at that amount. So we can all-
Yeah, you need to speak into the mic.
I think it's worth trying to see what that is. I'm looking at the property a couple of times. I've driven by. I've looked at aerial photos and Google maps. They are surrounded by a lot of trees. The property is also subgrade to the roads that are around. Even if they had the rolling stones, they are running at 85 dB as one source of sound. The chances of it being above 55 dB by the time it gets to anybody in one's individual's house is rare.
Audience to keep quiet, or we're gonna have to ask you to
I
step
base this
outside.
on my engineering. Would it be worse than people are being arrested? We have no evidence to support it. If we have evidence that shows that they are correct, and they may not, then we have the ability to change that in subsequent reviews of the story. That's all.
So my,
Turn it on.
so I guess I would disagree. Why go to 3 a year without evidence? I mean, I couldn't imagine going more than 1 a year
Why? What is
to
your,
get some evidence. If you want evidence, and that's, you're gonna say, let's have 3 different events that could all be very impactful to the neighbors. I mean, I don't agree with that approach. I think
have you seen the property?
many times.
And you don't think that all the forestation and vegetation around there helps to mitigate that issue?
It's not that big a lot. There's wetlands on the lot. There's gonna be outdoor music. There potentially could be outdoor music. There could be, who knows what. I would argue, if you're gonna even allow events, you allow 1 to see how it goes. And if it maybe expand from there or eliminate.
Your thoughts?
I think this one's easy. It's a problem because the noise, right? So we don't have any evidence in the record one way or the other. I mean, the applicant asserts they could keep it to 55 decibels, but doesn't offer any evidence. The neighbors reasonably say, no, it's going to be more. They haven't offered any evidence either. So I think just it's necessary, it might be uncomfortable for us, but it's necessary for us to make a decision on this. And I just go back to what I said last time about the farm to table dinners. And those happen on lots that are at least twice as big. And presumably they went through some type of process that took into consideration parking and the noise. This is a much smaller lot. So there's that. The other thing is septic system. I mean, these events won't fit the septic system.
You're talking about bringing in portable.
Right. because the septic system's not big enough for it. So there's that. I mean, the other thing too is it was brought up last time, the 150. I'm not sure if it was, I think it was the applicant asserted that you could have a wedding reception in your backyard. And that might be true, but it's not explicitly approved anywhere that I can find. In the zoning regulations, I mean, it's 182 pages. There's nothing that says anything about 150 guests anywhere. It does talk about, let's look up to section 2.1. No land or premises thereof shall be used in any manner which shall create any objective noise or light. Section 3, permitted uses as of right. Specifically says that a resident can have 10 chickens. It doesn't say anything about 150 guests. Section 3.3, permitted uses and zoning permit required. This is not perfectly applicable, but for daycare or bed and breakfast, 3.3D says it cannot create adverse visual, noise, odor, or light impact. So, I mean, the regulations do explicitly consider light and noise impacts. They don't explicitly allow 150 people. So we can work backwards, but
They also don't prohibit.
well, that's true, but they don't prohibit landing a helicopter in front yard either.
Which could be excessive noise. But John, one of your analogies from last time, I thought was very good. And that was a neighbor across the street having a wedding. Remember that? And so we had 150 people at a wedding across the street. Maybe that's 150 feet away. And that would be rather noisy, you would imagine, or at least enough that you could hear it in your house. But if you had 50 feet of that was thick forested land, wouldn't that kind of mitigate things for you?
Well, we don't know exactly where events will take place or where people will be. And what we do know is that it's 6 acres. We know roughly where the downslope is. We know where the road is. We know where the houses are near that road. So it's true, there's foliage. It's not that thick. Also, leaves fall. They have an event on their hypothetical calendar for November. So there's just not that much room. I mean, it'd be one thing if it was the Mercy Center with 33 acres and keep going back to the glass house, which according to the website is 49 acres.
Yeah, but I live across the street from the Mercy Center. That's going to apply. It's so far set back.
Well, that's the point.
That's the point.
It's not a fair analogy.
I would like to say that after our last round of deliberations, I thought about this using weddings as an example for the 150 people. And to me, weddings are completely different than what they're proposing. Weddings are, rock bands, open bar, celebratory, loud, raucous, going on to the wee hours, at least that's been my experience. And, I don't think that that's what they're saying. Again, to use, John, you brought up the one of November where there won't be leaves on the tree so that there's not such a buffer, but they're talking about 50 people, leaders, environmental technology leaders and guests from 10 to 5. It's not even after dark. Well, maybe in November it's getting dark at 5, but, up to 150 doesn't mean there are going to be 150 3 times a year. There could be.
So we have to
But looking at what they've
argue
given
the
us.
extremes. Doesn't matter what they've given us, that's their example.
Okay, and again, I'm gonna say, if you want to put in stricter conditions, I do think this is a good model to use as a starting point, because they provided this information of what their gatherings look like. A gathering of neuroscientists during the day is not a wedding of 150 people at night.
Right. So
But we can put restrictions on when and how many people.
I agree with John. And I looked at this from 4 different angles. From the things that were spoken about during the application. And that was the noise, traffic, noise, light, traffic, and property values. And I looked at it from the perspective of what evidence and findings were provided that would support including the events in the approval. So I'm just basically against I think the event should be struck from the application and not approved. So you're not going to try to guess what I'm going to say. But as far as I can tell, for events, there's, and I asked for this at one point to give a better understanding of what the events would be. We didn't get that information. It's not included in the records.
even though we got this.
That's not what I asked for. I said, tell me what is it? So the idea is it amplified sound? Is it a band? Is it an outdoor cocktail hour? Tell me what it looks like. Describe what a 150 person, because you're asking 150 people plus staff. What does that look like? And we never got it. So I have no data point for that respect. So for me, on the noise, the events are held outdoors and indoors. No information was provided on the characteristics of the noise being generated. Noise is a funny thing. 55 decibels is fine if it's a normal frequency, but if it's really low, really high, it's going to drive you crazy. It has that effect. It's just weighted. I'm not a noise editor. I don't understand this, but I do, from my own experience, though, different types of noises, even at lower decibels, can be very intrusive. There's no evidence regarding the anticipated noise level from the events and the types of noise. There is the condition of 55 for me that doesn't pertain so much because I don't know what we're trying to limit. And so that's it. So for me, the first thing is we don't understand the type of noise that's going to be generated. Granted, the example is small, but they're asking for 150. And so I'm going to peg my understanding is we're saying 150 is okay, and they could do it 3 times a year if they wanted to. That's what we're saying.
And they are saying that they're going to keep the noise levels and the light levels.
Right, but I'm saying
level.
there's no 55 decibels is not detailed enough. Me to say will not be intrusive.
It's 55 decibels at the property line.
That's probably on, yeah. Right. If I have a high-pitched whining refrigerator, it's not 55 decibels, but it's very noisy. Subsonic sound from a bass, if it's amplified music, is very different than conversational 55. There's a difference in the type and the impact on a person of the frequency and the type. It's about as I've gone so far past my comfort zone as far as telling you what I know. That's basically what I got. But there's no evidence for me to make a judgment.
I'd like to offer a kind of compromise that we're thinking about, which is combining several positions here. What if we consider starting with one event per year and monitoring it, as you suggested at our last meeting, to get some real data? Asking, I guess we would ask the foundation to do the monitoring or bring in this. Would you please?
The foundation would be assessed with hiring someone.
Hiring a
expert to
consultant.
monitor. We're not
A
idiots.
professional to do the monitoring, so we have real data.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out as a suggestion, as a way to combine.
So I understand that. I disagree with that because not that the foundation would do this. The type of event held will directly influence the type of noise generated. And so unless it's a,
But we don't have much information about
I'm
either.
just saying, we don't. So I looked
So let's start gathering
I looked at
information.
the Ziska book and it says if you don't have evidence, either way,
I agree with
you
that.
can decide which way you want. I'm gonna go with what I know to be,
So,
which is it shouldn't
so
be.
if we did this and had an external third party doing the monitoring of the event, and we found that it was, say, more like 45 dB at the edge of the property, then we could release it to go to another one. Is that what we're thinking about doing?
That's not what I'm thinking, no.
All right, so what are you thinking?
No events, no events. I can't get around it. There's that. I looked at the light to get around because actually did a nice job describing the light. I think the light is not an issue. I think traffic is an issue because again, there's a lack of evidence in the record with respect to traffic. They did a great job of the exit and entrances to the property. They did a great job at the bridge. That's all fine. And the road is a collector, but the road is a collector on the narrow end, and at one point, it's actually narrower than that. I don't know how far afield they measured, but there were no sightlines assessment or anything of that nature along the road which would impact this. So I don't know how safe a large shuttle van would be on that road. I know it's safe going in and out of the driveway. That's what they told us. That's all they told us. And I know if they put the abutments on the bridge, if you go off the bridge, you'll be smashed back going over the bridge the right way. So that's fine. But other than that, I have no data.
So how do we get it?
We can't. We don't.
Even though there's school buses that use this road, there are Amazon trucks, UPS trucks, there's landscaping
Just going with
crews.
this, I'm going with what I have.
But you do know that it's a public road.
Yeah.
And a through access.
Right.
So it gets use.
It does. It
And
does.
so adding one shuttle bus,
It wouldn't be one at an event, it'd be multiple.
okay, so adding multiple shuttle buses.
So I'm just, it's not, traffic may not be the death blow to this, but there's just enough from each piece. And then on the property values, it's basically inadequate. There's no evidence presented.
That's
Now we could ascertain in any way what the impact of the property values would be.
So I think, Bob, if you're suggesting that we eliminate the events, you need to come up with,
I did
that was it,
the noise, property values and the traffic. I can point to.
but there's no evidence.
There's no evidence
Either
saying
way.
that it's okay. And based on what I've read, that allows us to insert our judgment and decide what to do.
I think the traffic is worse, is more than what you just laid out, which is, again, picking on words, it's 150 people, but then you've got catering staff with trucks coming in and out, you have porta potty trucks coming in and out, everything, you know, well, who knows, but other kind of service stuff, that's gonna be a regular flow of stuff in and out for 2 days or whatever.
Why 2 days?
Well, they're gonna have to set up, it's not like you can just show up, 5 minutes before the event starts. So you just have to show up and then they're gonna have to tear down, you're gonna tear down at 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night, they're gonna come back the next day. The guys aren't picking up the porta potties the same day.
They limit the hours so that it will be.
Yeah, they have to come back, that's what I'm saying, they'll have to come back the next day, so there'll be another parade of trucks coming in and out to pick up the stuff. Not guests, but porta potties, any other tables, they're gonna have to rent tables from whomever, and chairs and all that stuff's gonna have to be dragged in and dragged out, be a truck.
Can't imagine that being more than a few hours on either day, 2 days.
No, I agree, but it's gonna happen.
Should we move on to the next category? Let's save all these notes. I'm taking notes. Aaron, you're taking notes.
Well, do we need to go back to gatherings then?
Right, so based on, to me, it was really the anything in the conversation and the events that would then influence our thinking on the gathering. I don't know if there is, it just thought that might be.
I'm perplexed as to how we could ever get the evidence without trying it out.
Not my job.
It is, it's our job.
The evidence is supposed to be given to us, and then we're supposed to, based on the evidence, make a decision. It wasn't given to us. We don't have to go out and search for it. It's just not there. And I agree, it would be nice if we could point to evidence, but I can also imagine multiple ways of having an event where it would be very easily past the noise limitation because of the type of event. And the next one could be noisier because of where it was held on a fall day with the wind. It was amplified music and it was just louder. You have to say, give me the loudest event possible and measure it. And you just can't. I don't see that as,
I don't
there's too
understand.
many
That would be
variables in that
real-
experiment.
That would not be realistic, I agree with that. But having one event and having a third party measure it,
But it's the same thing. There's no control available to assure that that is the worst case scenario and that can pass. There are.
One option the commission does have, and I'm only saying this because I'm not sure, we don't have a lot of restaurants with live entertainment or things like that in town that you're seeing applications for, but you do have the ability to limit the type of live entertainment, whether it's amplified music or live bands, acoustic, things of that nature. You do have discretion to add
Well, think
language
of-
or limitations in
Think
there
of
as well.
music on the grassy strip. You know, maybe I shouldn't bring this up because it's new information on this.
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're proposing no events. And is that going to go back and impact gatherings and meetings then, or can we move on?
Don't necessarily think so. I just wanted to throw out have that discussion and see if it doesn't
And we'll,
change how we think about those. I'm not sure it does.
okay,
It doesn't to me.
thanks. Are we ready to move on to on-site residencies?
I'm not sure everything I said.
The applicant seeks approval for,
Well, Carol, just one last thing. I'm just not sure if anything that was discussed and provides what John asked for, which is to look at the findings in support of limiting the number of gatherings from 4 down to 1 or 2. That was the only, if there's anything there, but I think we just need to read it. and fix it.
Okay,
I think that there's a stronger rationale for us, it's more for us to point to limit or eliminate events compared to gatherings. We just don't have very much to try to limit gatherings, and that's obvious. But we got a lot more on events. So,
Yes.
Carol, to answer your question, is there a trade to be made there? Maybe. Also, when you look at the proposed calendar, I mean, the gathering times and actual events are pretty low.
during the day and 1 is in the evening.
They seem less objectionable, whereas the events are reflect.
If you want to look at a worst case, events have a serious worst case, gatherings probably not.
Less of a worst case.
And I can also, as talking to be behaviorally, I think you're gonna have a much tougher time controlling what's happening at the events. I'm skeptical that all of these invitees will be comfortable going in a shuttle, that they're not gonna wanna drive up in their cars, find a place to park. That's the way folks behave in these situations, in my experience. Well, yeah, like on the road.
Exactly.
So
Exactly, that's right.
I'd like to move on to on-site residencies if we could. The applicant seeks approval for residential component of this use, which includes 3 different types of on-site dwelling. One is program residencies are proposed as temporary residencies for a maximum of 4 months. It includes meals and studio space for artists, art historians, authors, architects, researchers, and nonprofit leaders engaged in educational and creative endeavors. The foundation indicates that participants will be chosen by a peer jury review and or other similar committee appointed by the applicant. These residencies will not be generating revenue. Second type, staff residencies are for foundation employees, which consist of building and or grounds maintenance staff, executive director, program coordinators, and residence advisors. Parking will be designated on site for full-time employees residing on the property. These residencies will not be revenue generating. The third type is experienced guests, will consist of invitation only and or by prior reservation, temporary guests paying for overnight accommodations at the site where guests are immersed in the site history, art, architecture, and design experience, and or a curated mission-based educational experience. The applicant is proposing 2 limiting conditions. 1, no other residency besides on-site residencies shall be permitted. On-site residencies may occur in any combination of main house guest rooms in the main house guest house, and the barn. Amenities include provisions of all meals. 2, the total number of residencies on site at any one time shall not exceed 8 persons within the 6 bedrooms on site. And I think that's determined by what is allowed in residential districts. That's right. Anyone have thoughts on any of these residencies?
The only thought I had was on the experienced guests, perhaps some language to say they should be associated in some way with the mission, with they're not just random people coming for weekends. I'm not sure if we can do that, but some way to be sure that the people there are there because they want to experience the house and the yard and what they do. That's what excites them. I don't know how to do that.
I mean,
I'm
they
not sure it's
say
even allowed.
guests are immersed in the site history, art, architecture, and design experience, and or a curated mission-based educational experience.
Okay, and then maybe that's enough.
Okay.
And the other one is on the number 2. I'll just get to that. You can get that. The ancillary development fundraising.
There is a condition proposed by the applicant with respect to residencies of no more than 2 experienced guests at a time.
That's the PV.
Okay, so moving on to ancillary development and fundraising activities. These include specified identified uses where all funds raised will be dedicated to supporting philanthropic and educational activities on site. These include fundraising events. Of the events listed, up to 2 of the 3 events may be dedicated to fundraising events. So if we're eliminating that, maybe we don't need to consider that. Day-long corporate retreats and or filming photo shoots of the gatherings, up to 1 of the 4 gatherings. So this is the 13 to 25 people may be dedicated to day-long corporate retreats and or filming and photo shoots. Experienced guests within the on-site residencies, up to 25% of the annual on-site residencies, including staff, may be dedicated to experienced guests. So that's further clarifying information, I guess, about these other events, gatherings, meetings. Then further information, service, kitchen, and dining area will be for attendees of meetings, gatherings, events, on-site residencies, and ancillary development / fundraising activities, which were just described.
If y'all don't have anything, I always have something, sorry.
I have something to do.
Oh, go ahead, you go, please.
No, just one of my original comments. I think if not for meetings, but if someone's gonna spend, 4 months there, 3 months there as a resident, I think background check should be mandatory.
Their own peer review and competition.
Professional background check done by the foundation, to make sure the person.
And what are you basing that on?
I just think it's, no, just a person, I mean, you have new people coming into the neighborhood, taking up residency for a period of time. No, they said that they would consider, that's because I brought it up, this is the 3rd or 4th time I brought it up, they said they would consider.
Okay.
So, I just think it's the right thing to do, you want to be a good neighbor, pay attention to who you're bringing in for long periods of time.
I don't know, when my kids come stay with me, nobody does background checks on them.
No, but.
4 months.
We're not being asked to approve your staying with you, we are being asked to approve this in a
I'm just trying to
residential
think,
neighborhood.
I'm just trying to think, play devil's advocate with you, because I actually find that kind of offensive. But I think that given the mission of the foundation and the kinds of residencies that they're gonna have, I mean, if they agree to do background checks, that's fine, but I don't see any problem with the peer review that they do.
I don't buy it.
I'm not sure, I'd be curious if we're even allowed to.
I don't think.
If you
If
can
this
force
was
someone to
a-
get a background check or they're renting your.
If this was a bed and breakfast, they could, I understand, run this as a bed and breakfast.
Just
By
be-
right.
Short-term rentals do some, I guess, I
But
don't
there's,
know.
but no, what I'm saying is, I have no understanding that bed and breakfasts have to do background checks
No, I don't
on their
think
leases.
so.
I don't, I mean, I kind of get the idea of it, but I don't think it's, I don't think that's a fair thing to impose.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think
I
you're,
don't think it's appropriate for this.
I think you're right.
I disagree. I don't think it's an imposition. I think they should want to do it. It protects them as much as anybody else.
Yeah, but if you as a guest, how would you feel?
I feel like if I have nothing to hide, if I'm not a registered sex offender or anything else like that, then what am I worried about?
Andy, that's not within the purview of the planning and zoning
Yeah, I
commission.
didn't think it was.
No, that's fine. All right, but I can still say it.
The corporate retreats, there's the condition later about no outside entities renting the place. I think that should apply to the gatherings as well, or whatever the corporate retreats would fall under. So essentially, the corporate retreats, I would say we should strike that. And then the only other thing, the filming and photo shoots, I'm fine with that, but I think
Wait, sorry, Bob, you're saying
day-long corporate retreats would be an outside agency using the home for a corporate retreat. That's how I.
you're saying you don't want to have.
No,
corporate-
because they've already said they won't allow an outside there will be no non-foundation
Affiliated.
sponsored events. I think it should be no,
That was for the events.
right, so just apply that same logic to the gatherings. It should be foundation sponsored meetings and gatherings only.
I understand.
I thought they did say that, but if you want to emphasize it again,
When I read it, I thought it applied only to events. I just want to be sure that the gatherings are included in that limitation. They're ready.
Can you write that?
All right,
Sure, I understand.
I'm not sure.
Outside.
Okay, Bob, do you want to try to run by us what it would be, what it would look like if there was no annual operational plan? I think that's what you suggested earlier.
I guess I have to understand. This is something I don't know. But if we were to approve this with the conditions that we've been discussing and saying this is okay, I'm not sure what the operational plan is then going to do. Unless we're approving it with conditions, say this is okay, but you can only start with 10% of the number we approve. So 2 a day would be, I don't know, 1 a week, basically. And then every year you get to increase that number. I'm not sure I'm up for that. I don't think it's necessary. I think we put the right guardrails on the approval now. I could be wrong.
I guess the way I was looking at this was that we might be willing to consider more if things go well.
Yes.
If they don't go well, we would keep them at or less than what they are.
There's no harm to it, I guess. If you start where they are and then you get a chance to look at it every year.
I
And
think
so,
it provides some control over the whole operation. That's why it was offered. I think that's the intent, is that
Okay.
they're being completely transparent about what the plans are.
right,
And we can say, no, that's too much, or that's fine. Okay?
I'm not married to
I was
it.
surprised when you said no operational plan.
I'm trying
That's
to
kind of
simplify this.
key to the
for everyone involved.
application.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, what if we did an operational plan? As you said, we put the guardrails in place. If the Tremaine Foundation feels like they want to change the operational plan, they can come back to us
right, right.
instead of making.
And we have talked about conditions that would relate to the operational plan. Absolutely. Yeah.
Sure.
They can do the attestation, there have been no complaints, violations, whatever, the zoning enforcement officer takes care of that. If they want to increase it, then they have to go back to us.
Yeah.
Makes it pretty easy.
So you're not looking for a monthly schedule of what they're doing ahead of, for the year
I'm
ahead?
not, no.
I think it should be in there.
You mean something like this, Aaron? I think-
That's,
Yeah.
that's part of the operational plan,
So
so
absolutely.
The calendar.
Yeah.
is that what you meant? Joe?
No, I guess I was looking at more of a high level. Here's, as we said, here's the guardrails, there's 2 meetings. We say 2 meetings a day, 1 gathering a month.
Right, but it would.
They could put that in a calendar and show us what that's going to look like.
Right.
I can put it in a calendar and show you what it's going to look like.
No, you don't know when they're going to schedule things and how frequently. I mean, if you look at this, there are many days that are blank.
But Carol, I don't think you can keep going back to this. This is a simple calendar they submitted. It's not a commitment.
And we can make it a commitment.
Well, then I think that handcuffs the Terrain Foundation even more than what.
That's my understanding of what they're offering as part of their operational plan every year.
Yeah.
Is exactly what they're going to do based
Schedule
on,
events.
based on what they've been doing for the last 40 years or whatever. I mean, it's, maybe I'm naive to think that there's value in this plan, but
I'm all for kind of restricting everything, but at the same time, I want to be able to run that foundation and execute as they need to.
Didn't they generate that based off last year's? One?
that was my understanding, that it's based on how they run the
But
foundation.
if the plan is simply, our plan for the following year is to do this.
Right.
We'll come back in a year and let you know how it went, and if we think it's good or we need more. That plan is not going to reach the limits we've set, so it's going to be a percentage of what they could do. The plan, right? We're saying two meetings a day, 4 gatherings a month, and that's it. They put in the plan, they're not gonna plan 2 meetings a day and 4 gatherings a month, that's not what's in the plan now.
No, so they're going to show us that it's much less frequent.
Right, so let's say to do that,
Yeah,
That's what they're stuck with for that year.
and that's of value.
Then the following year, if they want to increase the original plan, they would come back to us and say, here's the new plan.
Right.
I don't think it's
They're
necessary,
from
but I'm not.
planning and zoning, right?
Well, we would look at the
I don't-
evidence.
Carol, do they come to planning and zoning with the
I'm not
plan, or they go to zoning enforcement?
Well, I think that the structure is that it would be shared with all of us,
Right,
but enforced by the zoning enforcement officer.
right. We would review the information and decide if we want to agree to let them do what they want to do or not.
And what is that enforcement? So we have a calendar. I'm not saying it's not a bad thing to have. It holds everybody to something, but what if those things are not held to? So there's more events or something changes that is detrimental. Is there any action that we can take?
So there-
We'll get their complaints from all the neighbors
Well,
right away.
I understand, but what is that?
There's language in here regarding, if there were not as many meetings as scheduled, or, well, meetings don't count, gatherings or events. So if there were only 3 in a calendar month that are scheduled in the annual operating plan, there's language in here that would allow the applicant to come to the ZEO to seek permission to add that 4th one onto the plan, but never to exceed the overall maximum number of either gatherings or events.
I think it's,
And I think part of the goal of having this calendar prescribed for the year is predictability and transparency of how the operation will run, both for the commission staff and the neighborhood. So I think when you're weighing what you can do it either way. You can set parameters in conditions, but you won't know necessarily when these events are happening. So it could be, knowing if they're in an operating plan and you have the calendar upcoming, you can say, oh, if there's a gathering on this day, we need, or it happens to coincide with another event, at another school up the road or something, or paving on a road, at least you're sort of looking at
yeah,
what is anticipated and folks know ahead
it
of
gives a
time.
little more control over how they roll.
Okay, well,
So
I'm fine with it. I
you
just
could
like
build it out however, either way.
Yeah.
You can get the limitations in, I think it's just how much information do you want up front ahead of a year?
so I don't really know how we move forward at this point. I don't agree with everything that's been proposed, and I think I would like to see it in writing to know what exactly
And then maybe we can vote on each of the items.
it is. Yeah. I mean, sorry to prolong the process, but we've heard a lot of changes that's being proposed. And for me, until I see it in writing, I want to just be sure what exactly it is
Yeah.
we're voting on, and maybe we can go through condition by condition and vote and reach some agreement on compromises, I hope, and coming up with an overall package that will work for everybody.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good approach.
That sound reasonable? So, I think, I don't know about anybody else.
You asking us dissenters to write some language?
Well, I think if you suggested changes to the conditions or additions to the conditions, it would be great to get that in writing.
Yeah.
So we're not interpreting what you said, because I'm not sure I understand everything that's been said exactly.
Mhm.
And also, I think with that, it would be really helpful to back it up with whatever you have legally in terms of information we've been provided during the public hearing about why that's your recommendation or proposal. Does that sound reasonable? Or does that sound reasonable to the staff?
So if I have notes from what you've discussed, and I can go with the most conservative language and put that in writing, and you can read through. If, as you suggested, Carol, if there are commissioners who have specific language or a specific document or testimony that you're referring to support some of these most conservative changes, the reduction in the number of gatherings, things like that, or citing traffic, please forward them to me. You cannot forward to the entire commission outside of a meeting. So you need to forward your comments to me, and I will put them in for the commission to have for your next meeting. But note that our next meeting is October 3rd. You'll have 2 public hearings that evening, and then your final, you'll have to make a decision by the second meeting in October.
Okay. Well, that's great, because then having that next meeting to have all this compiled for us would be hugely helpful, because I think we're getting a lot of information tonight that it's hard to really take a vote on at this point. So knowing that we have another night of information gathering and review, and then we can go to vote mid-October.
That sounds doable to me.
Sounds possible. Does everybody else feel okay with that?
Can we narrow it down just a little bit more though, before we take that jump? So,
Yeah, if there's more that you'd like
so
to.
regarding the meetings, it seems like we have an agreement on that, yes?
We're not trying to reach agreement here necessarily, because I don't think we're gonna get agreement, but if you have other things you'd like to propose for changes, this is a good time.
No, I'm just saying that I'm in agreement with Bob's proposal. And I'm curious if anybody else disagrees with that proposal.
That's fine. We put it all down and we all vote on all of them, not just yours right now on this one. We'll do all of them.
I think you're right, though. For as far as the meetings go, we're all pretty comfortable with that.
So
The gatherings and the events, not so much.
the gatherings are still open, the events are still open.
Yeah, and even some of the comments that have been made about the residencies.
Okay.
Yeah. I think, I don't know if anyone's had a chance to read through all the conditions since we just got the summary this afternoon. But if there's anything else in those conditions, send it there.
One other item that's not in there is the applicant proposed a payment in lieu of property taxes.
Right.
That's not a
Yes.
zoning issue, though.
No, okay.
It's the pile.
That has to be a program established by the Board of Selectmen, so the applicant would need to engage with the Board of Selectmen separately.
Aaron, one question is item 10 on page 7, saying that the special exception is made valid long and cited only by an academic organization. Do we know that we can establish that limitation? I've never seen it before, so if maybe we need legal, just to tell us we can do that. So they can kick back and call that on it.
So Aaron, just to reiterate what you said, we should not be communicating among ourselves at all. If there are additional comments, changes that you see to the conditions that are listed here, which are numerous, so take a good read, and if you have any comments, send them to Aaron so they can be compiled in this next
I'll
document.
try to put all my thoughts into actual conditions and give them to you.
Thank you. I'd also like to remind the commission that there's no outside communication during the public hearing. I am aware of members of the public who are individually reaching out to commissioners in writing. And I would encourage you, if you do receive something, to just forward that to the land use office as the public hearing is closed and there's no new information to be submitted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That goes through.
I have one other thing, and this is kind of a higher level question. As part of the special exception process, the consideration in granting or denying the special exception, 4.4.b says the public convenience and welfare will be substantially served. I could not come up with any compelling evidence presented by the applicant that the town of Madison's convenience and welfare is substantially served through this special exception. And town residents would not benefit individually. It was discussing major events are going to impact the local area. I guess maybe we can't talk about the loss of property tax revenue. And besides, there was some statement that potentially event goers would stay at hotels, local hotels, or eat at restaurants, but there was never any specific cost benefit.
Well, that was the Economic Development Commission that wrote a letter submitted in favor of the application because in their opinion, it would positively impact the town of Madison. That's my quick summary of what they said,
Okay,
but you might want to go back and read that.
okay, so that's the only public convenience and welfare that is substantially serves the town?
I mean, a number of us have used Michael Ziska's publication about what's legally required and found some of the language there to be helpful
Very helpful.
in understanding some of the terminology and text, because, our zoning regulations don't even define philanthropy. So that's not what they're designed to do necessarily.
I would encourage the commission to go back into the application documents to start trying to pull out. See, go back and read through that. If it's with respect to the mission statement or
Yeah.
and see what you can find in the testimony to support that or to not support that.
And to think about how maybe would it be harmed? How, and if it's going to be harmed, how? Is there a detrimental effect? Is there a negative impact? Is there actual harm?
I think specifically from the applicant's analysis, that was discussed in the certified planners zoning and comprehensive plan summary, as well as in Attorney McKeon's rebuttal letter. So.
And the 2013 Plan of Conservation and Development.
Well, those are referenced in, those are the documents, I'm just saying that.
Go back to that, maybe?
I recall the most discussion of that.
So Aaron, in Attorney McKeon's rebuttal, was it not stated or suggested that local residents could or would be invited? Would be a part of the process?
There is,
We can go back and look.
there is,
I thought it was referenced but not stated.
You're right.
But not written down.
You might be invited to some of the events.
Yeah.
Might, maybe.
It asked to be invited, welcome to come by, but it didn't specifically say.
There's no statement that said it's open to the public.
Just, I don't think those people, a bunch of people just show up.
Well, I would agree with that, but
We can go back and search the documents.
there were comments regarding this because there was a concern about this being open to the public. Generally, when initially there was a store being talked about or museum, and the applicant, as a result of that, came back and narrowed the scope of that in the amended use
Application.
this amended statement of use. So yes, there is language in here, and I remember reading it, but of course, as you're asking me, I have to find where specifically they do speak about being open or accessible to the public as well. Some of these events, the gatherings.
so if that's the case, then there's another benefit.
Yeah.
What's that?
If that's the case, that would be another benefit.
But you need to make that, what you say, John, is a good point, that you need to make these findings as part of your decision making. So you have to be intentional in the reasons.
Initial application with the statement of use.
John, I was thinking the same thing, 4.4B, first half, not really two different requirements.
Right.
I looked at the economic benefit and the renovation of the home as the two possible benefits, and then we just need to assess what's the total impact. Those are the only two I can think of.
Fair enough.
The economic benefit, ancillary benefit to the town. People coming in and then the restoration of the building.
Yeah. Offset by the loss of
Whether
tax
that's
base and all.
I just want to make sure.
That was,
I don't disagree.
that's where I made it.
It's subjective, but understood.
Very.
Okay, I'm all comfortable with what we've accomplished tonight and where we're headed for the next meeting. Any further comments, Erin?
We would need a table, to the October 3rd.
So I'd like to make a motion that we table our deliberation to October 3rd. Mike Buckner, and a second. John Guzzo, and any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Table to October 3rd. Thank you, everybody. So we have on the agenda a list of 3 pending applications scheduled for October 3rd. I'm just going to skip right over them there unless you have anything else you'd like to say.
Do we still have?
Then we have in receipt.
Okay, that's fine. I
2
just wanted to be sure.
applications that we hope we can get.
Thank you, because the town offices are open.
So next is 24-37, that's 64 Surf Club Road, map 36, lot 50, zone R2, owner applicant Town of Madison. Site plan review modification, includes site plan to replace existing island. You all would please.
Guys, come on, please.
Please, We're
Excuse
still
me.
having our
Hey,
meeting.
guys.
so sorry. This is to replace the existing sheet piling and caps, install decking and walkway with additional seating and landscaping features on Government Point.
I apologize, I had high non-video attendees. Our Director of Public Works, John Yanako, is here on the phone to walk you through the project, and I will screen share this town plan that perhaps several of you are already familiar with from previous informational meetings before the town. John, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
It's just.
Yeah, I'm actually in my office here. I'm gonna just come down because there's no, I guess, video. There's no video in the room itself.
The camera is on the TV, John, but we can see you now that you turned your camera on.
Yeah.
And I can screen share if you want, so you're welcome to sit there. That's fine.
I just, and the reason I suggested screen sharing just to kind of go over the project with the commission, but it doesn't matter to me, whatever. I guess this is fine. We can keep going.
Just looking for which plan is probably.
The only problem is our closed captions go right across your face.
Just turn them off. Well, we're not going to see John in a minute. John, I'm happy to. Do you want me to put the layout and landscaping plan up? You think that's the easiest one to kind of see?
Yes. And can the commission see that?
Yes, I'm going to screen share it right now.
Okay, I think that would be best.
Got rid of the captions.
Can you see it, John? You can see it. Right?
Yes, and in fact, I have it now since I'm at my computer, but I guess you could probably follow along with the cursor just as well.
Yeah, sure. I just got to move this out of my way. Sorry, I had a tab in the way.
We're almost there.
Where'd you go? Sorry. There we go. I have too many things up. Okay. I can scroll. I can come out a little bit. Everyone's familiar with where Garvin Point is at the surf club.
Right.
Yeah. Here, this here is Garvin Point.
All right, I can. You want me to, Aaron? I can just kind of do a brief overview of the project.
Sure.
So this is obviously the primary purpose of this project is to replace the steel sheet pile retaining wall, steel seawall, essentially, that is reached its useful life expectancy, and it's I think it's on the order of 30 plus years old, and it's the steel has rusted to the point where it's gotten thin, and it's there's corrosion, and it needs to be replaced before it starts failing, essentially. And so this project it's to replace that wall, and the town hired SLR to do the design. The main really the main point about the project is to what this does is it replaces the sheet pile wall by leaving the existing one in place and installing a new sheet pile wall on the waterward side of this wall, the existing wall, 18 inches away, and it just follows along the current wall location. It will be driven deep into the ground, and there's been soil and geotechnical analyses done to design this structurally. And so in addition to just replacing the wall because it's old and it needs to be replaced, there are site amenities that were proposed, which I guess is really the what's driving the need for this site plan modification. There are some site amenities, and what I can kind of point out the features. One of them is the boardwalk, sort of that crosshatch shaded area is a 5-foot wide boardwalk that would go along the perimeter so that it's a little bit more, it delineates the edge of the wall and provides an area for pedestrians. And you can see over on the right side of the plan, it ends in sort of a circular gathering area. And then in addition to that, there's along the top, the upward side of that circular area, the northerly side is a seat wall, which provides a seating and an area where people can gather and sit. And there's a landscaping feature, as you can see, to the north of the seat wall. So these are site amenities that have been reviewed with the public. There was a public information meeting. Well, before I get to that, so in addition to those features, on the sort of the top right corner of the plan, there is a wall, there's a concrete steps going down to the beach, essentially, to access the beach. And what that does is it replaces existing steps that were, you can't really see it on this plan, but it's on the easterly or the right side of the plan. And if you know the surf club, you've probably seen these steps that extend down to the beach, and the lower steps at times are exposed above the sand. Sometimes they're buried, and it depends on the the natural deposition of sand and sand material, where it comes in at times in the winter and then recedes in the summer, generally, or probably the other way around. It comes up in the summer and it gets washed away. So that's just kind of normal coastal movement of sediment material. And so what this plan does is it provides concrete steps down to the beach area, and it also provides more of a sort of a decorative, I wouldn't call them steps, but a seating area that you can access the beach that way as well. This plan has gone through a couple of iterations where the initial plan that was presented had, it was essentially the steel sheet pile was the same, but the over on the right side, the steps that we're looking at had an area of steps that went down into the water, and it was a combination of steps and boulders and sort of natural boulders that would allow people to walk down into tidal pools, and we all thought that was, or many of us thought that was a nice feature. What ended up happening as it went through the environmental permitting process with Connecticut DEP, it came to our attention, or the consultant's attention, that that would entail a much longer review time, and not, it would not necessarily, there was no guarantee that they would approve that, because it involved, tripped some threshold, and it involved a significant amount of fill below the coastal jurisdiction line. So this is sort of, this plan, the final plan that was settled on was a sort of a scaled back version of the original plan, where it still allows a walkway down to the sand, but it was pulled back into the point, out of the water essentially, back up into the grass area. And that allowed this to be eligible for certificate of permission type of approval with DEP, which was a much more expedited approval process, which DEP has approved this plan and Army Corps of Engineers has approved the plan. And so essentially what this does is it's sort of a compromise of the previous plan. And this was all reviewed at a public information meeting. It was presented and before and after that public information meeting, it also went to the Board of Selectmen it was presented by the consultant and reviewed, and really the consensus that the takeaway from the public meetings that have occurred is that people like the plan and the amenities here for the most part, and so this is the plan that the town has advanced, and we'd like to get Planning and Zoning Commission approval for the site modification, so that we can go forward with the with construction of this plan in the fall and winter season, so that it'll be ready and completed before next spring. That's where we are today with this.
Thank you, John. That's a great summary. Anyone have any questions or comments?
No.
In that case, we have a draft resolution to offer.
I can tell you, I did get comments. We did refer to DEEP because mandatory flood and erosion control structure, but in talking with the analyst, they decided to defer to the COP permit and not have any additional questions, comments. So we will not be seeing any additional feedback from DEEP.
Excellent.
Which is good.
Yep.
Yes.
Go for it, Eddie.
All right.
Thanks.
The following draft resolution is offered. The Madison Planning and Zoning Commission approves application 24 through 37 for 64 Surf Club Road, map 36, lot 50, zone R2, owner applicant, Town of Madison, site plan review modification, coastal site plan to replace existing sheet tiling and caps, install decking and walkway with additional seating and landscaping features on Garvin Point as shown on plan. Garvin Point Improvements, Surf Club Road, Madison, Connecticut, by SLR Consulting International, dated May 1st, 2024. 11 sheets total, in parenthetical, with the following conditions. 1, that the zoning enforcement officer be notified at least 48 hours prior to commencement of any regulated activity. 2, that all erosion and sediment controls be installed prior to any site disturbance and be maintained for the duration of construction activities and until the site is sufficiently stabilized to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer. In the event that changes to the approved plans are required as a result of other agency permitting to support the proposed activity, the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission reserves the right to review said changes and may require modification of this approval. This approval is made based upon the finding that the proposal use is a permitted use in the district and that the standards, prerequisites, and conditions specified by the regulations have been met. The Commission further finds a proposal consistent with all applicable goals and policies in the Coastal Management Act and Section 25 of the Madison zoning regulations. The town's effort to maintain and improve coastal access and amenities for the public is commendable, and this work has been identified in the town's coastal resiliency plan as a project of importance. Installation and maintenance of adequate soil erosion controls during construction activities reduces potential impacts to on-site and adjacent coastal resources during construction activities. The effective date of this approval is October 4th, 2024.
Thank you, Eddie. Second? John, do the second? Any further discussion?
None.
All in favor? Approved. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks, John.
next and last, 23-46.
It was a good learning
First one
experience.
and the last one.
31 Stony Lane, map 36, lot 25-2, zone R1, owner applicant Barbara H. 12 LLC. Request to modify approved development plan for open space conservation district to change the number and location of driveways and number of bedrooms per unit. Receiving action tonight, we hope. Thank you.
Good evening, Chuck Mandel, agent for the applicant, Adam Greenberg. So this is on Stony Lane. It's the Kingsley Farm. It was the previously approved 6-lot subdivision. We had 4 driveways originally. We're going to go 2 more, so we want individual driveways. It's problematic to share driveways. It's not desirable. So we went and did a walkthrough with Robert Russo. We checked sight lines. We did provide that, and I do have a letter from him that's part of the record for the approval. There's really not much more to say. Any
Yeah, I
questions?
kind of summarized that. It's a little bit different process than amending a PDD master plan.
Yep.
This does not require a new zone boundary change or a formal application. It's simply a written request submitted to the commission. Staff did feel that it was significant enough to come to the commission as a change rather than a staff, approving it on an administrative level. Only because there was a good amount of public interest in the project initially.
Yeah.
And
And
the
we do have
idea
letters.
of consolidating, right, and so at our suggestion, the developers have met with the neighbors, and we do have quite a number of them who have signed a letter.
So there were no objections.
No.
There were no objections.
Could you just talk a little bit about the bedroom changes?
Yeah, so there was also economics were involved in this. So for the more bedrooms, the better. They were 3 bedrooms originally when it was a more condensed subdivision. We do have approvals on 2 of them already from the health department. There's significant soil testing that was done,
Yeah.
so they can all meet the health code. We do have significant soil testing.
We're
We're
all
all,
change the septic or?
no, not really, just maybe the size, a couple of linear feet of the length.
So the square footage change.
The square footage, yes, the length probably. We're also proposing passive nitrogen removal on these systems, which is a new technique that people are using. It's wood chips and sand that are down gradient from the system, so it removes excessive nitrogen from that. We also have a couple of applications before the Inland Wetlands Commission also utilizing the new septic techniques.
Out of curiosity, why don't you guys go with the 1 driveway per home to begin with? Are you trying to save space, try to conserve?
Probably considering the neighbors at the time, and the mood has changed a little bit. Curb cuts, but it's actually, the width is almost the same.
Same, yeah.
So you really don't gain much. It was just more to satisfy the neighbors, so there was less traffic. But as Aaron had stated, we do have a letter from all the neighbors and there was no objections to these.
Can you expand upon
Right away.
the sightline issue?
I'm sorry?
Expand upon the sightline issues for.
Yeah, so lot 1 is the one closest to Fort Path. Robert was concerned about cars making that turn coming around and the proximity, so we moved it to the south. And we also, he did some clearing, no large trees, but there was some brush that was cleared, and now it is significant.
So it meets code.
This sightline meets code, right? Lot 3 was also, it comes down to a dip. So we're gonna raise that up to meet grade, so you can see there's a vertical curve as you look to the north. So this way you can see over the vertical curve and stop where people can see.
Stony Lane was paved since we first.
Yeah, so that's actually a binder course.
Yeah.
So it's gonna get paved again. So right now, public water is gonna be installed very shortly. There's gas there already. So once it's paved, that was another concern that Robert had. So it's gonna be probably paved in the spring. So they'll put the water line in, repave it to Robert's satisfaction, and then in the spring, they'll pave. So if there's any settling, they can fix that.
Thanks. Any other questions? All right, we have a draft resolution. Who would like to read it? John Morgan.
Voted that the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission approve the modification of the Open Space Conservation District Development Plan for application number 23-46, 31 Stony Lane, map 36, lot 25-2, zone R1, owner applicant Barbary 12 LLC, as shown on map entitled Open Space Conservation District Site Development Plan. Residencies at Barbary, 31 Stony Lane and Fort Path Road. Sheets 1 and 2 by Thomas A. Stevens and Associates dated July 21st, 2023. Revised to September 3rd, 2024 with the following conditions. The applicant shall incorporate comments from the town engineer regarding driveway sightlines into the OSCD site development plan and submit updated plans to the zoning enforcement officer prior to the issuance of any preliminary certificates of zoning compliance for the 6 lots. Number 2, the applicant shall incorporate comments from the town engineer regarding driveway sightlines into the site development plans for lots 1 and 3 prior to the issuance of any preliminary certificates of zoning compliance for these lots. Number 3, the applicant shall amend the record subdivision map to reflect changes to the shared driveways and eliminate unnecessary easements on lots 2, 3, 4, and 5. The map shall be signed and filed on the land records prior to the issuance of any preliminary certificates of zoning compliance for these lots. All other conditions of approval shall remain in effect. The effective date of this approval shall be October 4th, 2024, and upon filing of the record subdivision map.
Thank you, John, you just made it. Second? Did you need water? You got water. Okay, Mike Buckton. Any further discussion?
Congratulations, you made it.
Great.
So dramatic. All in favor? Unanimous, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to approval of minutes.
Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
Sure, for the September 5th meeting, members present, balance, Reinhardt, Reuben, Morgan, Duzen, and Bugler. To approve,
I'll provide a motion.
Michael, second. Wendy, any edits?
I have some
Corrections?
minutes.
Yes.
On page 2, the third paragraph down, the following fundamental problems for the Emily Paul Schmidt Foundation, I actually said issues. I even went back and checked the YouTube video.
Oh,
Because it was in my notes, and to me, there's a little bit of a difference between issues and problems, so I'd rather it go back to issues,
okay.
if that's possible. Thank you. Otherwise, they're great.
Yeah, they all look good. There's one, the word site, included a C, it should be spelled S. But other than that, very minor issue. It was all perfect.
Considering it was a good.
But that's.
Vote to approve?
I will abstain.
All in favor except for
An abstention.
one abstention, Mr. O'Connor. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, remarks. I would like to just let everybody know, if they don't already, that Janet Peckinpah, our commissioner, is on medical leave for cancer treatment. She'll be out for a while, probably till November, we think, Erin? Yes, I mean, she's sort of checking to see how she does each day. But I just wanted to say also publicly that we obviously wish her a speedy recovery and look forward to having her back here with us on the commission, because she is missed.
Yes, I guess.
All right. Erin, any other remarks? Okay, could we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second by Bob Reinhardt. Any discussion? All in favor? Adjourned at, it's like 9:45, 6.
Not so bad. Not so bad.
45 according to my phone. All right, thanks, everybody. More homework.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Hold
Hold on one second.
No,
Only 2 hours.
just.